Need to- Darren or John, do we have you? There you are.
I am unmuted. Okay. Good morning, Council. Okay. Good morning, Council and Mayor, Mr. Mayor. Dave Hollapa is our partner that will be joining us in this. Perfect.
Yep.
And off of mute. Britt, first and foremost, welcome back. So glad to hear everything went well for you. I think I can say for all, we missed you. That's for sure. So welcome back. We wanted to touch base. Dave and I have been working, as well as John, on several avenues on this. You're all familiar with the Bridgeview development site. However, we are at a critical junction that we have got to get ingress and egress to this property. I can't say it enough. The property right now is just virtually unsaleable. The ingress and egress situation, because how MnDOT changed that right away and they pinched off that opening, it's creating a title issue. There's no way we would be able to sell this property until we can get this motel torn down and work with you guys and get the plan, and then we're golden. So that's kind of our point. So I've actually spoken, and Dave has come on board since then. So wanted to just get a general consensus of where we are.
John, did you have some comments you wanted to make?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you,
This
John.
is John Fito. I am the owner of Bridgeview Development. I have been involved from the very beginning of the conversion of the property into a commercial site. It's been a long process. We've enjoyed working with the city of Virginia along the way. As Darren outlined right now, we are somewhat up against it because of the limitations on access that the highway department ended up kind of boxing us into, for lack of a better description, when the highway was constructed. In time, I just got my new property tax statement, and I will be spending more, according to valuation. Unfortunately, I'm also competing with a new commercial site in Eveleth that's almost identical, which is owned by the city of Eveleth, and funds there were used to tear down that site, which would be somewhat similar, I think, to the funds that could be employed here. So we're hopeful that there can be somewhat of an equalization, for lack of a better description, of our ability to market our site and put the property on the tax rolls and create new jobs. So again, thank you to Britt for all of her work to date. Welcome back. We're really somewhat desperate to move this thing forward.
Oh, okay, Mr.
Britt,
Fito.
can you give us? Britt, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Can you kind of give us an update? Because there was some confusion, and it was on my part. We simply misread an email and it was referencing the Midway property. We thought it was talking about this, and it turned out it was the Mulliver property, like I had mentioned and explained to you. So, but from the city's perspective, has the application been submitted to the IRRR to take down that building?
I do have a pre-application in. I do need updated quotes, but I have been at a standstill waiting for council discussion as we were directed to determine if we can burn the building through a fire training program, and it has been since then determined that that's not feasible.
It's connected to that house.
Correct. That's why they won't allow us to do the fire connection. However, I am having contractors prepare some quotes as required for the grant for the tear down of the Midway Motel.
So pre-application, and then once you get your quotes, then that formally will be submitted.
Correct. If the council approves another resolution submitting the application.
Okay.
And that's what's on the agenda today, Britt?
That
correct?
was the last discussion, was they tabled the resolution for the application for demo for further discussion.
If I could, this is John Fido again. Is there any unresolved issues or additional information, or is there a priority change that the resolution is on the table, or is it just a process issue?
John, Darren, this is Larry Cuffey. I'll open this up for additional discussion for the council itself, but the goal and objective here is to discuss with you today to reassess and revisit the issues that we have. We are well aware of what the issues are with respect to Bridgeview development. We have been supportive of Bridgeview development from the very beginning. The issue for us is able to get IRRB funding to tear down the Midway Motel. We tried to find other ways in which to do that to help facilitate that. We did have application before, and that was not approved by the IRRB. We're hopeful this pre-application for the purpose of tearing down the Midway Motel will move forward. I think the determination is we had some priorities with respect to what kind of buildings haven't been approved by the IRRB. We have since torn those buildings down, are in the process of a couple of other structures, but the Midway Motel is on the agenda, and provided that we get funding from the IRRB, we do have information from our Public Works Director at Alto, and some opinions from our City Engineering Department, particularly Bill Hennis, with respect to tearing this down. We do have the iron, we do have the expertise, we do have the capability to do this in-house. Our Public Works Director is confident we can do that. There are some issues, obstacles we need to navigate, particularly the house being attached to that. That's in the process of being separated out to some degree, and so we're looking to move forward. But once we get the new updated quotes on what it's going to cost to demo the building, then that pre-application will be submitted to the IRRB, and anticipate today at this meeting we'll may move forward with a vote to go forward with that process. It is important for all of us, and I'll let the other councilors speak on with their own opinions on what they feel is appropriate. But my perspective is that this is a landlocked community. Business development is at a premium. You have a site that could be, and it's Highway 53 accessible, which is location. Obviously, we have to find a way in which to facilitate access to that. On a tangent, a parallel issue is with respect to how do you access that as people are moving southbound from Highway 53. We have enlisted the assistance of our lobbyist group and our local legislators, Senator Thomasoni and Representative Lizagard, to bring forth a request again to the Minnesota Department of Transportation to open up Cuyuna Drive. And we anticipated having some meetings with them during this legislative session, but obviously because of the COVID-19, that's not feasible at this point in time. So a lot of these issues have been put on the wayside until the bonding bill can be taken care of and the city and the state's business can be done. But we're committed to tearing that building down. We just need some help with some funding in which to do so. So we are taking the parallel approach, both to try to open up Cuyuna Drive and get that building torn down. So at today's meeting, upon completion of discussion, we may look to entertain a motion to move forward with we are getting the quotes. Is that correct, Britt? To move forward with the application process to the IRRB. We've passed this resolution before to request funds for that, and since the IRRB has prioritize that as we didn't get that application, but we're hopeful that, and based on discussions with staff members, that we may be successful in obtaining the funds for that. And if that is not successful, John and Darren, then we'll have to find the funds in which to tear it down based upon what the new quote is. And I think the old quote, if I remember correctly, is about $100,000, $75,000. So I would anticipate that a new quote may be more or less, depending upon the state of work that's available for the demolition company. So that kind of wraps up in a nutshell. Does that answer your questions? And do you have any other comments or questions for the council? I don't see anyone's like, I take that back. Let me refer to Councilor Johnson first, and then we'll come back to you, John and Darren. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for joining us electronically as we venture forward. I'm curious to know, do you have anybody ready to build in that site? I mean, how are we, there's a lot going on in the city of Virginia, and we've got several projects that are ready to go tomorrow. Do you have people signed up and ready to build in that space for Bridgeview, or are we still working on securing investment? And that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Did you hear that question, John and Darren, from Councilor Johnson?
Hey, yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is John Tito. The answer is that yes, we have continued to pursue specific users of the property, but we keep coming up against the answer is kind of chicken and egg. We can't sell the property unless we can give them access to the property. I'm hearing Senator Tomassoni mentioned, and he has been an advocate of this project. The mayor just mentioned him again. I talked to him a short period of time ago, as about 2 weeks ago, and he indicated that if the city gets the application in, he would do his best to facilitate this and move it forward. Once and for all, you can't sell property that you don't have public access to. That is the dilemma we're facing. Legally, we have to qualify every discussion that we have with any potential buyer. That's really a tough issue for us. The other problem is, technically, the building, the motel, is on our property. So in that context, we have an issue there as well. It may be only by a small area, but it's still legally on our property. That has to be removed. So
it's called an encroachment.
Yeah.
The
And
building
it is
itself
literally
is encroachment.
recorded on the title.
Right.
One person at a time here, please. Thank you. John?
Excuse me?
Just one person
sorry?
at a time. There was kind of two talking at the same time. We didn't quite get either one. So John first and then Darren. John?
I'm sorry. I'm not quite hearing the question. I'm sorry.
Well, both you and Darren were talking at the same time. We didn't get either one of
I'm
those
sorry.
answers. So if you could go first, John, and then we'll move on to Darren. Thank you.
Again, I'm just going to repeat what I had said, not knowing how much of it came out. The fact of the matter is, we continue to have serious discussions with several different potential users. But the thing we come up against legally is our ability to convey the property or a portion of the property without legal title. The fact of the matter is, we don't have it. Are not legal title, but legal access. I'm sorry. The other aspect of this is that the motel is on our property on an encroachment. Both of those things would be cured by taking the building down. As I also said, Senator Tomassoni has been helpful from the very beginning and try to move this project forward. I talked to him about a week and a half ago. He indicated that if the city proceeds with the application, he would do his best to make sure that it went forward.
Yeah, thank you, John. Darren, did you have something to offer before we go back to Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, since we've probably spoken last, I don't think we've really had an in-depth conversation with this council as a whole, from the real estate technical side of it. And that's why I apologize for interrupting, but the encroachment is basically an encumbrance against title. And we must, under all circumstances, obviously disclose that. It has come up as a direct question, say, okay, how are we going to get in here? And their biggest question is, are they going to be able to get onto Highway 53? And that's where we're standing in a corner against a brick wall, that the there's nothing we can do. We can't, like I said before, the property is unsaleable. And so we're just really hoping that we can get the full support of this council, to get this application into the IRRB, and hope for the very best on that and get this done, because then we can really start moving forward. Dave, do you have anything from the commercial side? You've been hitting the pavement pretty hard.
Nothing that hasn't been discussed today. We're really addressing a single issue today, and that's we've hammered it home, I think.
Okay, thank you,
The
Mr.
title issue.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mr. Holopa. Councilor Johnson, do you want some additional comments and questions?
I have a couple of clarifying questions. So could you gentlemen tell me at what point in this process you lost the legal access to the property?
My understanding is that initially we had access. When MnDOT moved forward with the new construction of the highway and the bridge, our access was pretty much sealed off. And that's where we no longer were able to basically point to clear title on getting on our property and off our property. Otherwise, it was there.
Is that because they purchased the right-of-way?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
If I can add something to that, what happened, Councilor Johnson, is we went through the process. We initiated the purchase agreement. We engaged in the sale. This was all in the early stages of the highway determination and which way it's going to go and all that good stuff. The access that was on this was exactly how you pull in there right now. If you go the city street, Midway Drive, that plat has never been vacated. That plat goes all the way straight through, and the property, Bridgeview property, was one time a trailer. Mr. Mayor used to live there, I guess.
That's right.
And then it became a campground, and it was owned by the same owner who owned Midway Motel and the campground. Well, the campground kind of lost its appeal, went away. He just kept the land, and that's who we bought it from. Well, during the design phase, when the E2 route was chosen, they changed the right-of-way, and the right-of-way went farther into and basically went right across that driveway and the pinpoint and on the new surveys. And we didn't discover this until well after, when we did our certificate of survey, and it clearly shows that the right-of-way cut us off, and that's how we lost access.
So that was through no fault or any action of the city?
No.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. All right,
not.
I appreciate that clarification.
And we can all know how hard we fought tooth and nail, with MnDOT on this, and it was even after we pointed it out to MnDOT, it's like, hey, you just cut us off at the at our knees here. They just shrugged it off. It's very frustrating. So now we're where we're at today. And access through Cuyuna Drive and Midway Drive is at this point our only option.
Okay, thank you, Darren. Please continue, Councilor Johnson.
And then my other question is, when did the encroachment occur of the building? Like, when was that?
Yes.
It's been, who knows? I don't know when they built that addition or how they did, but it's the, I gotta think, the north end of the building. Britt should have a copy of the survey. It's clearly identified on the survey. The other issue that was there, and you guys took care of it.
Sign.
The sign that was there for that hotel was about 80% in the street right of way, right in the street, literally, because Midway Drive, like I said, was never vacated. So that Midway Drive to the point where you could get into the, I'll call it campground, because that was what it was prior to Bridgeview development. That was the access to this site.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to clarify because part of what you're saying, I just want to make sure that I understand that the city has not done anything since you purchased the property to cause any of these challenges for you. So I just want to be really clear about that what we're doing now is we're trying to help you with your investment that you made, and you know, I would have think the encroachment issue would have come up when you did the survey for the sale of the property, and that should have been dealt with by you guys when you bought the property initially. That's where I'm at with that, so that's why I wanted to clarify when that encroachment occurred. You know, I'm fine with trying to figure out if there's IRRB funding, but again, I said this to you guys the last several times you were here. You bet and you lost at this point. You bet you would make all this money from buying this beautiful corner, and MnDOT changed some of the rules, and now you're sitting on a piece of land that you can't access. And I appreciate that. I'm sorry, my investments have suffered in the last month. Yours are suffering because of other circumstances. We can only do so much as a city. We don't have unlimited funding. We don't have unlimited resources, and I'm more than willing to help support, ask for money. But at this point, the city, we also need to be very cognizant of where we're spending our money, because we don't know what's going to happen over the next month or 2 months or 4 months either. Thank you.
So just to move this forward a little bit, before I make another comment, I want to ask Councillor Paulson or Councillor Beyondich if they have any questions or comments they'd like to make with respect to this. First, I'll ask Councillor Paulson, anything that you'd like to add or any questions that you might have?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think the one question that I might have for either Mr. Fido or Mr. Alto is, have you approached MnDOT at all regarding the lack of access on the right-of-way? And if they did, in fact, purchase that right-of-way, were you given any reimbursement? And if not, why not?
We have worked with MnDOT diligently. When we first discovered the issue, they did actually state that they would be willing to accommodate and make an adjustment, but there's never been a fee or a dollar figure. We're not looking for that. And to kind of back up, the encroachment that Mr. Johnson was talking about, that was not determined. There's not a point of sale requirement in the state of Minnesota. So the site was bought, yes, on some speculation, but then Mr. Fido decided to make a significant investment in the property, and one of that investments is a survey. And the certificate of survey is the golden ticket, as we'd say. Nothing else trumps a survey. If somebody wanted to argue this encroachment of whether or not it was there, it would take another survey, and they would come to a meeting of the minds and said, yep, this is right, it's there. So we did not know about that encroachment prior to the sale. You know, it really wasn't a concern from that standpoint, because we had access from the right-of-way road that went into the former campground. So, Councillor Paulson, the answer to your question, we have been working with MnDOT since day one that this came, you know, Highway 53 to be moved. I think it was in 2010, and we're getting very little participation or cooperation from MnDOT.
Okay, Darren,
Thank you for that.
yeah, if I may clarify for you, Councilor Paulson, a little history that, and since 2010, or before, when the property was purchased by Bridgeview Development, and there was currently access to Highway 53 from Cuyuna Drive, both south access to Cuyuna Drive. And then, so this property was being prepared to be marketed. They were clearing the property during the course of the process, trying to make it shovel-ready for businesses to make sure that, we had, it was prepared enough, the soils, everything was prepared where they could build, okay? So there was already access from Cuyuna Drive. Then the state of Minnesota came and bought the right-of-ways, took some of the encroachment out of there with the opportunity for Bridgeview Development to have clean access to that property. We already had made an indication that we were going to make sure that Midway Drive could be extended to the point and make those adjustments with an agreement with Bridgeview Development to have them have access to that. Well, when the state of Minnesota closed Cuyuna Drive, that negated any access that Bridgeview Development had from the southbound perspective into that property. So that's one issue, number one. Challenge number two is that when we went to the state legislature, when Commissioner Zelli was the commissioner of the Department of Transportation, and Senator Tomassoni came along with us and was very supportive of this. And so we went to the legislature. We went all the way through the Minnesota Department of Transportation, all the way up to the commissioner. The commissioner looked at this, brought his people together, his staff people, and said, no, we're going to keep Cuyuna Drive closed. And there's a lot of documents and records about keeping that closed for what they considered to be safety reasons, for accidents and traffic issues that have gone on in the last 30 years. And so that was their initial reason for closing that. Then we had indicated that if you're going to close that, you got to give us some kind of access from southbound Highway 53 into Midway or to Bridgeview Development. They said no, we wouldn't allow it at that time. They were going to make a J-turn. So they made the J-turn, which goes onto Midway Drive. So as you're moving southbound Highway 53, you go past the Bridgeview Development project, you go past the closed Cuyuna Drive access point, you go all the way down to Vermillion Drive, and you have to make a U-turn and come all the way back to that development property to gain access to that. And so the challenge is how are these people who Bridgeview Development wants to court for business development in the community? And we made a commitment that we want business development in this community. We know we're landlocked. We need, to help support that in some way. And to everybody's point, Councilor Johnson's and others, that we want to find an economic way in which to do that. So in order to provide that, that's one issue. The other issue is the access from Midway Drive. There is an extension of Midway Drive to get into that Bridgeview Development. That's not a significant challenge for us. We can help accommodate that with some kind of project development agreement, access to the funds. That can be done. We are in the process of looking to establish funds to tear down the Midway Motel, and once that gets done, that's logistics that can be worked out. But the two issues that we have is, number one, is what's the cost associated with tearing down that building? Who's going to pay for that, and how much reimbursement can we get, and what outside funding do we have to do that, number one, which we're working on now. And the second phase approach is to continue to once again revisit the Highway 53 access from Cuyuna Drive, which helps really significantly giving you off center, or as Darren Alto has said, you're in the corner against the wall and you don't have any other place to go. But there's ways in which to do that. We're working in that regard. This is something we discuss on a regular basis over time. So that's where we're at right now. Does that give you a history, Councilor Paulson, of where we were before and where we're trying to get to now?
Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Well, Councilor Beyondich, do you have anything you'd like to ask or any questions or comments you have?
Not at this time. I'm just looking at all of this.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Councilor Bearable has a question. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, going back, looking at this project, when Cuyuna Drive got shut down, the original right-of-way, did the state of Minnesota, and I can't recall, did they extend it to the east and made it different when they moved that highway, or is it in the same location as original when the original 53 was going by there? What did they do? Does anybody remember? Is it still the original now?
It goes to a point, so the access is not the full, there's a slight right-of-way access to the Bridgeview site, but it goes to a point and it diminishes, so there's not a clear access, because MnDOT didn't change the right-of-way, they just kept the existing one. And so it kind of, they used their existing right-of-way for the highway, thus blocking off the Bridgeview development site by building on their right-of-way.
So what the problem is, the state of Minnesota took it upon themselves, and legally, I don't know how, unless there's state law that says they can actually close an existing right-of-way that had access to properties that needed to have access to, and that's a legal question. Has that ever been challenged legally with the state of Minnesota?
To answer your question, Councilor Baraboo, and those who are listening, there was some discussion early on with respect to the right-of-way and how that was going to work. They had indicated because, and this is just a conversation, I haven't seen it in writing, but I remember being at this meeting with the Department of Transportation about this particular issue, and they were saying that, well, you know, there's no property, even people that own property, there's no businesses, there's no property, or there's no business, there's nothing that's being adversely affected by that access to the property is, but it's not a harming business or anything of that nature. So they were to continue to move forward with this. And then at that discussion, we said, well, then the easiest way to accommodate that is to keep the right-of-ways. We don't care, provided that you reopen Cuyuna Drive, which is the most inexpensive way in which to provide access to that process. Does that answer your question, Councilor Baraboo?
Well, it does, it doesn't, it doesn't, because there was a business there where that right-of-way started on that Cuyuna Drive access to get to the motel, and that was still operational at the time. So how can they deny the access? That is a business. How can they take that whole thing out and deny the access to the motel that was existing and in business? I think you have if they wanted to, I think they have an obligation and could go after a legal ramification to get that reopened, because that business was there. It was not closed at the time, Mayor. They had there, and there was not access. Once they closed Cuyuna Drive, that motel did not have access off of the highway except from way down, which affected their business. It is a detriment for them to be able to operate their business in a manner that would be conducive and profitable for that motel, because that business went to hell after that.
And I believe, Councilor Baraboo, just one moment, Darren. That's right. There was a two approach. The access point where they had a right of way, which they would provide a supplemental access to the property in order to get to Bridgeview development. The second one was the closing of Cuyuna Drive, and what they used as a reason for that, and whether there's legal ramifications or not, whether that's an avenue that's prudent to go to, it probably is an open access to that. And when they closed Cuyuna Drive, they decided that was too dangerous, right? And we argued the fact that it wasn't. And in our resolution, we put in there we would approve, the plan provided that you kept Cuyuna Drive open. They refused to do that. In order to get the project moving forward, we acquiesced. So then, as a policy or as a process that they used the course of that by closing Cuyuna Drive, they replaced that opening with the J-turn onto the Midway Drive, and which we felt was not acceptable. That it does have an adverse effect on the businesses that were currently operating there, the Dairy Queen, okay. And even some of the other businesses, Colbert Realty, the rental company, Water Quality, all those, Bear Country Realty, all those could have been adversely affected by it. But their argument was by putting the J-turn in there, that gave access, which is adversely affected to those businesses, except for the Midway Motel and the Bridgeview Development access. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, but that isn't a logical reasoning by the state of Minnesota, because you negated the south access to those businesses that was already existing on Cuyuna Drive. That disappeared.
Yes?
You only had one way is coming back from the north, so you had to go all the way up to 135 to make a turn and come back around on the new highway to even get to that J-turn. So
And
so that is very inconducive. You can't get semi-trucks and stuff that unload and things on those frontage road businesses, so.
And that's what the state of Minnesota, to your point, Councilor Bearable, that's exactly what the state of Minnesota says. Use, go to highway, go up to 135 and turn around, which we argue that that's just not,
Well, you can't do that with a big
Practical.
vehicle on that J-turn. You can't make the corner.
not only that.
You end up
right.
you end up my daughter's piece of property on the corner of that J-turn.
Right, so, yeah, you're absolutely, yeah, those are the issues that's been a challenge for us from the beginning, and are still remain as a challenge. I think what they're asking for now is a way to get access to their property. And the argument, or the issue that you have, John, and the issue that you have, Darren and Mr. Holapa, is that you need to find a way to get access in there, and your perspective is that by tearing down this Midway Motel, that's going to give you access. Well, I mean, you could still have access without tearing down the Midway Motel. It's just that it's an eyesore. We agree that the motel has to come down. Our challenge is to find the fundings in which to do that. We're doing our due diligence in which to accomplish that goal and objective, and at the same time doing the parallel approach, still trying to get Cuyuna Drive reopened, because that's the cheapest, most inexpensive way in which to do that. We have some good points to argue with respect to reopening that. Particularly, one of the examples is the access to the landfill road, which is completely much more dangerous and doesn't meet the requirements of the line of sight. So we have a lot of arguments. So those are the issues that we're working on to try to answer your question, Mr. Fido, Mr. Holapa, and Mr. Alto. And if you just hold your comments for a moment, we have some additional comments from Councilor Bearable, and then we'll move on to Councilor Friedlieb.
Well, the accident history there, Mayor, there were 3 deaths, if I recall right, on that stretch past Cuyuna. One of those was a wrong way driving on that. I remember there was a head-on collision with somebody coming from the north going to the south on the wrong way. So how do you count that as an accident at the Cuyuna Drive? So that drops it down. I think another one was a flip over, if I remember right. How do you blame Cuyuna Drive for a flip over?
Well, our argument was back then, when we did this, when we made our arguments, we looked at those accidents, and none of those fatalities were intersect related. Were not related to that intersection. They were near the intersection, they were on the highway, but they were not intersection related. Unlike the accidents that have happened at the landfill road, those are intersection related.
You're absolutely right. There were no intersections. That's what the point I was trying to make.
Right,
There
right.
weren't. There were a few intersection accidents down on Borgen Road.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a few of those, more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that has a much better viewpoint, so that negates the state's argument about the accidents on Cuyuna Drive. I think they made a bad decision in the state of Minnesota, but how do you rectify it?
Well, we went through the District on Engineering, Dwayne Hill, Virginia, Pat Houston in Duluth, all the way up down the line, and Mr. Robert Hagee. They were all really great people. They didn't have this decision-making authority. They were abiding by the rules and regulations and the direction of at the state level. That's why we went that far. We used those examples that they were not intersection related. It fell on deaf ears for the most part, and they continued to close Cuyuna Drive based upon, and I'll say this publicly. I think at that high level, at that particular time, under a previous administration, they gave us a bunch of lip service about that. And we hope that the more level heads will prevail in our request to reopen Cuyuna Drive. But those examples that you gave, those are all arguments we used, and were unsuccessful at that time. We hope to be successful at this time. Council, did you want to?
No, just thank you for the update.
You bet.
I thought my memory was right, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah, you're right on there. We went to those coffee conversations, meetings every day. Councilor Friedlieb.
Hey, good morning, John, Darren, Mr. Holopud. This is Gary Freely. I just want to mention the fact that, the obstacles that you face, the obstacle course that you face, we in fact are facing that as well. And the initial obstacle that the city, I think, is responsible for, is the hotel demolition. I mean, the intent and purpose of us investing in that hotel was to essentially facilitate the development of that area from whatever perspective we were able to. And of course, like we've already talked about, we're seeking those funds to do so and trying to minimize the funds that we'd have to take out of city coffers to do that. But ideally, I also want to mention the fact that I do appreciate the investment that you made into that property, because ultimately any profit that you make from that property is going to be a profit on the part of the city as well, from the increased tax base for the businesses that might eventually end up there. So all I can say is that I will move forward with whatever I can do to assist in removing the obstacles that you face, and the initial one being the demolition of the hotel, because that was the first and foremost thing that we purchased to facilitate your continued development. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go, no other councilor has their light on at this time, so we'll go back to you first, John, and then to Darren. John?
Well, I think this is John Cito again. We appreciated the cooperation that we've had from the city over a fairly extensive period of time. We've taken trips with the mayor down to St. Paul to meet with the commissioner of transportation. We've met locally with Commissioner of the IRRB in City Hall. We've done a number of outreaches with MnDOT, mostly unsuccessful, just because they don't seem to do much of anything that isn't in their immediate scope. So it seems to be irrelevant that this issue with right-of-way, and typically MnDOT does not file right-of-way if you have an understanding of the history there. They have done that in this particular project, which is the basis for why we don't have access any longer. Throughout this whole thing, we've been assured by as many different folks as we've talked to that this is a legitimate request to tear down the motel. The city went forward with acquiring the motel. It would seem that the IRRR at this point should move forward. As I said, Senator Tomassoni indicated that if the city passes the resolution for the request, he will do his best to tear it down. This is a typical use of funds that that is earmarked for development like this. We've done a substantial amount of upfront investment here, close to $400,000. Again, as I indicated, and as you all remember, St. Louis County is moving forward with the increase in value here. So we're going to end up paying more property taxes as of May 15th. And again, we feel an opportunity is here to complete this project, move forward, create the jobs, have the new investment, as we all would like to see happen. And again, we appreciate the help from the city in the past, and we're looking forward to passing this resolution with the request and moving forward again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Councilor Paulson has a question. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. One question that I have is, I know when we purchased this, we had maybe some intent for development, but I'm wondering what our intent is now currently with that property. What is the city's intent?
I think the intent is, Councilor Paulson, I think in our preliminary discussions, to own that property, control what goes there. The city still owns that property for potential economic development. And we looked at two big parcels that have Highway 53 access. One is the Midway Motel. By tearing that down, controlling access, we have that property. We can use that for economic development purposes as we lobby for that, in conjunction with the business development that's being done by the private entity, number one. And number two, the second property that we also look at from the state of Minnesota is a property on 2nd Avenue and Highway 53. And those are two parcels we felt that was a good location for good economic development, that Highway 53 access. So the goal for us wasn't to tear down the motel to only facilitate the Bridgeview development, but to have that as a marketing piece of property for future new economic development for the city of Virginia. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and that kind of leads me, I mean, I remember discussing potentially a billboard could go there or whatever. But my question then would be to Mr. Fido and Mr. Alto, and I don't know if the city would have interest in doing this, but my question is, if the city were interested in selling that piece of property, would you be interested in purchasing it and then being able to, with it as you wish, maybe negotiating a portion of that for a billboard?
Go ahead, Mr.
Again,
Fido.
Mr. Mayor, Counselor, this is John Fido. We could very well see it as part of the larger parcel. At this point, it kind of is the piece that's missing in terms of our access. So there's always an opportunity to sit down and find out how we facilitate this thing going forward, but certainly not interested in acquiring with the motel still on it.
Did you get that,
But
Counselor?
if the
Go ahead.
motel was not there, there possibly would be interest.
Absolutely.
Or would there be interest if the city could act as a fiscal agent for that demo grant going forward?
I believe that Counselor Paulson, the demo grant is what we'll be discussing today and asking for a resolution from the council to move forward with the application for the demo grant with the updated quotes.
Right. I understand where we're at. My question is regarding a potential partner with the sale of that property. If the city really doesn't have a utilization or an intentful purpose other than putting more dollars into that property. I understand what we're trying to accomplish. I'm trying to understand if we can accomplish it in a different way.
Sure.
If I could, Councilor Paulson, oftentimes when we are working on a development project, it is not unusual for us to, the first thing I do is see who the surrounding neighbors are, and we, in essence, can co-market the Bridgeview development site and the city of Virginia. That site, once that motel is gone, is extremely developable and has value. There's no question. Whether or not Bridgeview Development wants to buy it prior to, I can't speak for John, but I don't think that's where we're at. But that doesn't say that we can't keep that in the back of our minds, that portion is also available in conjunction with the Bridgeview Development site, if that makes sense.
Yes, and thank you for understanding where I was coming from. I just wonder if there's some kind of an amicable relationship that could be developed here with a partial sale or whatever that might look like. I think we could have further discussion maybe with our city staff.
Yeah, I think that's.
I've been working with Britt on several different projects. I myself helped you out on what was it, 3 or 4 last year, and I'm all for it. I had a great relationship with the city. I would like to continue with that, and I do feel that that property does have value. And you're right on. You're nailing it right on the head. What is the end use of it after the motel comes down? And I'm going to state that, yes, there is value to the city of Virginia, but that motel sitting there as it is right now is a detriment to the value of that property.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Beyondich, anything?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, Julianne, there is another value to that piece of property for the city to own it. And that would be if all things work out and they get access back for Cuyuna Drive, there would be a combination that we could do with the developer to access development funds to put the beginning of that access road in there, because they're going to have to put a frontage road in there for their businesses. And that's a reason we could be a partner that way and find funding. We've done that with other projects, correct, Brett? Yeah, so that's one reason at this point I do not want to give up ownership of that corner because it's too valuable to get into the development area. So if that makes sense to you?
Yes, thank you so much, Charlie.
Yeah, and I think,
Mr. Mayor.
hang on a
Mr. Mayor,
second.
John Fido again.
John, hang on just a second. Hang
Just
on just a
as a
second.
further note, if I could, to add a little more information, your ability to acquire the funds to tear that down are much greater as long as it's publicly owned than if it was privately owned. So in that context, you do have the right process going here in terms of the horse in front of the cart. So, and I think our intent has been fairly clear from the very beginning several years ago when we first started this and had our first of several meetings with the IRRB. They, in fact, the commissioner sat in the commissioner of IRRB sat in your council chambers and indicated to all of us at that meeting that they would help tear that property down if acquisition was made. And again, it's been a while, but certainly we're reintroducing the topic that everyone was pretty much agreed upon.
Yeah, and John, I think that the issue for us is that we have 3 issues before us today, I believe. So the first 2 are immediate. The third one goes to Councilor Paulson's issue, and the first one is to get a council resolution to move forward with a resolution authorizing staff to move forward with pre-application and application to the IRRB for the demolition of the Midway Motel with the updated quotes that are available. That would be issue number 1 for us here today. Number 2 would be to put together a group of staff, whether it's whoever it is, and along with Bridgeview Development as an agreement to continue to once again revisit the Cuyuna Drive project and get that reopened. And by moving forward with a new administration coming down the pike and trying to reopen that and looking at the costs associated with whether you put a new access point as opposed to reopening Cuyuna Drive and the costs we got before where it was astronomically less to reopen Cuyuna Drive, and the arguments we have, I think, are prudent. So that's number 2. And number 3 is the longer term of owning that property once the motel is turned up, provided that we tear it down, is to potentially look at a partnership, and we could at some future time, after staff discussion with the city council, enter into a project development agreement to help market that property as well. But the city retains ownership of the property. It's marketed, through the business development, through Bridgeview. They market their own property. That property will likely sell itself like they have in the past. So to Councilor Paulson's point, we can continue to move forward with discussions about that at a future time. But the immediate issue is to try to apply for the funding to tear down the motel, make sure that we have our ducks in a row, which we've had before, and hopefully be successful getting the funding to tear down now. And we do have information from our Public Works Director, Eddie Alto, and some acquiescence from our City Engineering Office. Bill Hanna says that we can tear this down. We could do it internally. We could save some costs there. Wait, I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
We can, but they're estimating it's going to be a month and a half, which is a long time to tie up our crews. So we are getting quotes. We are looking at all options, but that's just a caveat.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. But the caveat is that, we could do it, not necessarily that we would, right? Okay, so I apologize we could do that. So basically, we want to adopt a resolution here for you, John, and Darren, and Mr. Holapa. We want to make sure that we are moving forward with the application for the demo Midway Motel. And so the demo, it's going to depend upon, what obstacles we have to overcome and what methods and processes we have to do to get it done. But the goal and objective is to tear it down as sooner than later. And by using this process can help us facilitate a meeting moving forward with opening Cuyuna Drive. Does that make sense to you, John? And then on to Darren.
Mr. Mayor, yes, this is John Fido. Yes, that does. And Mr. Mayor, this is John Fido. Yes, it does make sense. It kind of gets us back on track, and we appreciate the fast track of trying to get this back in the lane of for lack of a better description, of tearing it down. We can then start marketing on the basis of the access being provided. And in terms of some of the other elements of the discussion today, we would be very pleased to work with the city to fill out that corner.
Okay, so we're asking maybe for two motions here. One is to, is that correct, Brad? We're asking to a resolution to seek funding from the IRRB for demolition funds for the Midway Motel. Is that correct?
Correct, and we'll bring the resolution to the council meeting next week if that's the council's decision today.
Okay, so we'll just, we have a committee of women here, John and Darren and Mr. Holapa, that will hopefully pass a resolution today, approve it at the city council meeting on the 14th, and then move forward with that. And that would be a motion number one. But before we go to the motion, let me ask once again, Councillor Paulson, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we move forward with a potential motion?
No, Mayor, and thank you all for the clarification.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beyondich.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bearable, you have your light on?
I was just going to work on the resolution motion, but go through everybody else first.
And we're, looks like we're ready to maybe entertain a motion, Councillor Bearable.
I will move at this point to direct staff to prepare a resolution for the next city council meeting on, how do you want to word it, Britt, for support of funding through the IRRB for that? Is that perfect?
Okay, thank you. Motion by Councillor Bearable, move forward the resolution to apply for and accept funds from the IRRB for the demolition of the Midway Motel. Is there support? Support by Councillor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Paulson, any further discussion? Councillor Paulson, do you have any further discussion?
No, I'm sorry, Mayor. No.
Okay, so we have a motion, and Councillor Beyondich, any further discussion? Councillor Beyondich?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and supported to move forward with a resolution to bring before the City Council for approval to apply for and accept funds from the IRRB for the demolition of the Midway Motel. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Then I'll be looking for a second motion to direct staff to reach out and meet with the Minnesota Department of Transportation in an effort to try to reopen Cuyuna Drive. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Freely. Is there support? Is there support? Support by Councillor Barnzelli. Any further discussion? Councillor Johnson?
On what basis are we doing that?
Well, Cuyuna Drive was closed by the Department of Transportation, right?
I understand the history, but we've been having this discussion about Cuyuna Drive for almost 10 years since they started the process and they closed it. I question if it's a great use of staff time at this time to have them have the same conversation again. That's where I'm at. I don't understand the problem with, if you go down to the Twin Cities, you sometimes have to drive past the establishment you want to go in, go up the ramp, take a left, and drive back the other way. That's all we're asking people to do here. Major shipping companies don't come from the north. They come from the south for the most part. I just don't see at this time directing city staff to, other than maybe another email going, hey, have you changed your mind yet? And them saying, no, we really haven't. We're not changing this. We're not, because that would involve cost and they're going to bill us. They're going to make us pay for the opening. They're going to make us pay for the turn lanes. They're going to make us pay for that. And I'm guessing that's a couple $1 million easy to do that. So I would be supportive of this if it was city staff email the Department of Transportation and ask them again and get a formal yes or no response. But anything more than that, we've done this many times. And are we willing and can we afford to pay the costs of putting in those turn lanes by ourselves. That's my concern on this motion.
Well, thank you, Councilor Johnson, but I would like to reiterate, I think this is important for business development in the city of Virginia, because we're landlocked. We need that. Regardless if it takes a little bit more staff time, I don't think it's going to be a big burden. However, if it is a big burden, give me the authority to go down and meet with the Department of Transportation and our legislative staff and our lobbyists and the Department of Transportation and bring back some information, have them come and give us a presentation. Therefore, then we're not encroaching on what staff time would take to do that. If that answers your question, number one. And number two is that this is yes, we've been talking this for a long time. Ever since the Department of Transportation decided to close that, and I will ask our city clerk to provide us the resolution that we had to sign off on this project. I think it was like 4 years ago, because that's when they closed Cuyuna Drive. It was open before then, but we'll find out the time frame for that. But it's important for us to move forward, I think, with that. I recognize that we don't want to be spending the money ourselves and having the city take the responsibility of reopening Cuyuna Drive. That wouldn't be our mantra, because as the state created this problem, the state needs to rectify it. Even if we're not successful, at least we should revisit it from my perspective. But I do appreciate the concerns that you have, Councilor Johnson, on the process, the costs associated with staff time, the costs associated with potentially the city responsibility for doing that. Neither one of those should encroach upon what we've done in the past. And unfortunately, we've been unsuccessful, but I think we should continue to try. So if it is a burden on staff, give me the authority to go meet. It would take no staff time in which to do that, and I will bring back information and bring the proper people before the committee of the whole and the council, so everybody is informed about, how we're moving forward. And I wouldn't be making any decisions on behalf of the city. I would just be making inquiries on behalf of the city, if that bodes well. So that being said, we'll go Councilor Barnzelli.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, John Fido. Carl Barnzelli.
We're in discussion phases now on this motion.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So is there any further comment on the motion to move forward? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Councilor Paulson, were you an aye or?
I was aye, yes.
Okay. Councilor Beyondich?
Aye.
Okay, we will take the roll call. We don't have our clerk here, so Pam, would you please take the roll call on this motion? Pam, are you on the line?
You hear us, Pam?
Yes.
You do a roll call?
Did you hear
Hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Paulson,
Councilor
Yes.
Paulson? Aye.
Beyondich,
Yes.
Johnson, Baranzelli,
Yes.
Baraboo,
Yes.
Cuffey.
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Councilor
Friedlieb,
Freely?
yes.
Oh, Friedlieb, sorry.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Councilor John Fido and Darren Alto, Mr. Holapa, we just passed a resolution, if you haven't heard in here, that we're going to be moved forward with the application for demolition of the Ridgeway Motel. So, thank you. Any other comments? First, Mr. Fido, and then Mr. Alto.
I just want to thank the city and the council staff for all the assistance and support over the last several years on moving this forward. We appreciate your help.
Okay. Thank you. Darren?
I concur. I've enjoyed working with the city and look forward to continue working with to bring this to positive development. I mean, we work together. If we can get this done, let's have these businesses come to Virginia, not Evelyn or Mountain Iron. That's the key. So I thank all for taking the time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fito. Thank you, Mr. Alto. Okay, I guess looking for I don't know, do we need a motion to allow me to, or all staff or someone to meet with, I don't think we need a motion for that. I think that's part of the legislative request moving forward and asking for information. I don't think you need to direct. I can represent the city without a motion, which I will do. That way it'll reduce significantly the concerns that Councilor Johnson has regarding staff time regarding this issue. So thank you. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Britt, thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is under Street and Alley. It's to review the request from Mountain Iron regarding the stormwater piping near Plaza 53, and this is on their Mountain Iron Drive. I'm going to refer this to Charlie, the Street and Alley chairperson, as they've had 2 meetings on this already.
Councilor Baraboo.
And I do want to point out Matt Reed is on the phone. So
Yeah,
Matt is here.
thank you, Brett. And that was what I was going to ask. The first thing, if anybody, either Bill Hennis or Matt Reed were on the phone. Matt, first question to you. Did we receive any update design on what they want to do with the arrows that we asked for from Mountain Iron? I have not seen anything yet.
Matt, question to you. Did we receive any update?
I'm sorry, Charlie. Can you guys hear me okay? I had a lot of interference when you were asking that question. I couldn't hear what you said.
Can I ask that anybody on the phone, if you're not speaking, to put yourself on mute, please?
Okay.
Matt, the question was, did we receive the new information from Jeremy from Mountain Iron on the new design with the arrows that they had planned for the CFIs of the water that would be going into our system? Did we receive that? I haven't seen anything yet.
Yes, we did. We got Bill Hennis and I talked with them. I actually talked with Jeremy Schwarzy from Benchmark myself following up that meeting that we had. We did get some calculations. Is Bill in the room or is he on the phone?
No, not that I know of. I don't think he's here
Okay.
today. It's his week off this week, I believe.
Okay, so the long and the short of it is, what we had talked with Benchmark about, we ran the calculations and looked at some things. We had talked with them about leaving the 12-inch pipe in place that's there currently, removing the storm drain that they had put in some time ago, Mountain Iron that is, in the ditch, and just redesigning the road a little bit so that the water could run overland into the catch basin. And that should suffice. That we're really not going to see it.
Okay, so
What was
Matt,
that?
go ahead, Matt. You still there?
Okay. I think that the recommendation that Bill and I have would be to not allow them to put in the larger pipe, but to potentially consider allowing them to retain the current pipe that they have there, and then they would just have to upstream of that smaller pipe, that 12-inch. They can install some bigger pipe if they'd like to. It's just going to be a restriction going downstream. And the reason behind that is obviously wanting to be good partners with the city of Mountain Iron. They're good neighbors and all, but at the same time protecting the investment that the city of Virginia has made back in, I don't know, some.
Yeah, Matt, we put in about, when we put that 60-inch pipe in, we invested close to $1 million in that. Has water coming out from north of the mall and the Ridgewood area. So that's kind of the conclusion, I believe, that our Street and Alley Committee came to individually. I believe I'll just ask them here. Carl, is that the thought that we do not allow them to put the excess water into our system other than what they had there already. And that portion was put in illegally to begin with. Are you okay with that? No, they'll keep the 12-inch going into our system. They'll back up with a 24 on their end. It'll be like a neck down, so it can't get more than 12 inches that's coming into our system now. Steve, are you okay with that?
My question is have we had any issues since they installed the 12-inch?
No.
No.
No. So I think that leaving it the way it is and whatever they need to do on their end is perfectly acceptable,
Okay.
leaving the 12-inch there. And then I guess one of the things I heard in our meeting was because they are using our sanitary system, do we need to come up with some kind of agreement that allows them to use that? Whether we charge them or if there's just an agreement that, yes, we're aware of this and we're going to move forward accordingly. I just think there needs to be some kind of formal partnership or agreement.
I agree. I think that's what, if the council agrees to continue with the 12-inch connection that they do have, that it has to be a formal agreement and that they have to pay the storm sewer fee like any other resident of the city of Virginia is going to have to pay.
That would be part of if we authorize once Bill and Matt put together the information for the council meeting, that would have to be part of the authorization that they'd have to pay our stormwater fee. Otherwise, they don't get it. They'll have to remove that 12-inch, and they put it in there illegally anyway. So that would be the recommendation. We would go with that to the council meeting next week.
What is the stormwater fee, if I may ask? Would it be approximately?
Approximately about $2 a month.
Yeah, it's not much.
Wow. Okay, all right, thank you. Counselor Paulson, do you have any questions regarding the Street and Alleys recommendation to the council about this issue with the stormwater pipe to remain the way it is? It was illegally put in way years ago. Mount Island wants to put a larger pipe in. Our recommendation is no, keep the 12-inch pipe moving forward, continue to move into our sanitary system, and have them continue with the 12-inch pipe, not authorize them to put a larger pipe in, dumping into our sanitary sewer system. And
Sanitary stormwater.
I'm sorry, sanitary stormwater, sanitary stormwater, and then have them pay the stormwater fee. Is that correct?
That
I'm
is,
comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with that recommendation.
and
Okay, you
also
comfortable?
also to remove the catch basin that they had in the ditch. That's part of it.
Right, okay. So, Counselor Paulson, your understanding of that?
Yes, and I'm comfortable moving forward with that recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich?
I am also comfortable moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wondering if this fee could be retroactive.
Place until the first of the year, so that it wouldn't be.
No, it's not enough money to worry about.
Good question.
Thanks for asking the question. Matt, did you get all that information we're going to recommend to the council? So if you and Bill can put together just a letter of recommendation for the council meeting next week on what we kind of approved as a quick street and alley meeting here, we agree with your assessment.
Do we have to have a resolution here to move forward?
I don't think we do we, Britt, at this time?
No, we can just bring it forward. It was just the discussion that we needed to have, whether we wanted to keep the 12-inch connection or allow them to increase the size
Okay, very
going
good.
forward.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, are you still on the phone? Now we'll touch base with him after to get him to do that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
That takes care of that issue. Thank you, Mayor.
I guess Counselor Paulson and Counselor Beyondich, there's not going to be a resolution here. We're just going to have it all prepared for the city council meeting on the 14th.
Sounds good.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda reviews the proposed changes to the city public improvement and assessment policy. The Street and Alley Committee has been working on the 2021-2023 Street and Alley project, or street infrastructure project. And once they did the calculations based on our policy, which stated 50% of the cost, it was too much to assess the residents, was the feeling after looking at the cost breakdown. So we asked our financial advisor to break it down to a 30% special assessment rather than a 50%. And in your packet, you'll see the scenario of what it would look like if we did a 30% special assessment. It would require an annual levy of about 5% the first year and 1.6% in 2023. And the total special assessments that we would receive would be 1.2 million in the first year and 1.09 million in 2023.
Okay, and I have one question.
Yes.
So is this a levy, assessment levy to those who are affected by these street improvement projects, or this is a levy across the board for all citizens?
It will be both. Special assessment is a special assessment by definition are levied against those that receive the benefit.
Right.
And then there will be an annual levy that will have to also occur.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Britt, I'm a little concerned about that annual across the board. We got into trouble here back on 4th Avenue when we got sued and lost on that because we had kind of a policy similar to that, and we had to revise our policy. I don't know whether we can go across the board. I'd want a legal advice on that from our city attorney because we got in some trouble way back and we lost that case. And we had to redo our whole assessment policy.
But today, all we're looking at today is not the street project. We're looking today at the assessment policy. We want to change the assessment policy state that we're going to assess 50%.
Yeah, oh, no, I understand that. So this other question will come up later then?
Correct.
Okay, that's fine then.
I didn't mean to convolute, so thank you.
Yeah, we'll bring that up. We'll bring
So
that
it is
up
our
later.
suggestion, meeting with
Because
Street and Alley
current-
Committee and the financial advisor, George Eilertson, that we should look at redoing our assessment policy to state, rather than a 50% assessment, that we're going to do a minimum of 20%, which is required by state law for the local streets with average daily traffic greater than 1,000 cars per day, and the local streets with average daily traffic of less than 1,000 cars per day would be assessed a minimum of 30% of the project cost. And that the council can determine on a per-project basis the assessment amount.
Very good, thank you.
And those are the major changes that we recommended when we talked at our committee. I don't know, Steve, if you were at that meeting or not on that assessment policy, but we did send it out to everybody, so everybody had a chance to look at that. But it's a downward movement of our assessment policy because we had some preliminary calculations on some of these streets when Matt did the feasibility work and stuff, that there's properties where they got miles and, or not miles, but blocks of streets, and someone would have had an assessment of $140,000 in the Midway area, which is ridiculous. So that's why we moved it down, Steve. But state law requires, because the way the money's coming, and we're going to use state aid funds also on this, that we have to assess at least a minimum of 20%, as in state law. We can go above that, and we decided on 30%.
And that can be changed on a project-by-project basis.
Yeah, and of course, the assessments, if we get any dollars from grants, other things like that, those come off of the total value for the assessment. So it doesn't end up 30% of the whole project, usually because we find other funds. The state aid dollars we have to take off other dollars that we receive as we look for them. And they come off the top. So if you got $100,000 and you got $60,000 in grants, it's only $40,000 for assessment.
Thank you for that clarification, Councilor Bearable. Councilor Johnson.
I have a question. I know we're looking at number one, but we've put minimum in the other two. When we get down to number two for alleys, since we're making changes, should there be a caveat? It says 75% of the cost will be assessed. Is will the right word, or should it be may? Just because that gives in the future, it gives us some flexibility.
We certainly can add that. We can add up to 75% of the project cost may be assessed.
Yep, I just think as long as we're creating a minimum, I think it makes sense to then look at how do we give ourselves flexibility in the future should something happen in an alley where maybe all of a sudden the federal government decides that alleys are a priority and they want,
Absolutely.
So that was my only comment looking through this is that
We can add, I have no objection
changing
to
that
that.
up to in that spot.
I have no objection. Alleys are petition projects, by the way, for our assessment policy, so.
Okay.
So that would be a good change. Steve, thank you for that. I didn't catch that one.
Okay, so we have, thank you, Councilor Bearable as Chair of Street and Alley, and Street and Alley member, Councilor Johnson. I'd like to go to Councilor Paulson. If you have any questions regarding this assessment policy, It looks like we're looking at the policy and the change in the policy from the old policy of assessing the people 50% of project costs with using other funding sources, reducing that to 30%, and with a change in the policy as suggested by Councilor Johnson to indicate that not we will assess to we may assess. So it gives us some flexibility as to, on a project by project basis. Councilor Paulson, any questions, comments, or concerns?
No, not at this time, but I do appreciate that language change. That makes more sense to me.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich?
No, not at this time either. Thanks.
Okay, very good, thank you. Councilor Baraboo? Councilor Barnzelli, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
I can't see your light behind your computer, so I apologize for that.
Councilor Baraboo, didn't we discuss that percentage one of our first meetings?
Yeah, we did, and that was kind of a recommendation that came out of that first meeting. I think that's the one Steve was missing.
He wasn't there.
Missing from, and we asked staff to do the revisions and then give it to us as a council, which was done.
And then the next two meetings, we were dealing with the Mountain Iron.
Yeah, basically Mountain Iron, and then we had approved the street projects already through the council, which ones we're going to do in the future.
Thank you.
A lot of this stuff is going to have to be put on hold a little bit until this COVID-19 is done, because we have to have public meetings for every one of those street projects.
Absolutely. This is a long-term
And it's going to be long-term. It may even extend our project out another year beyond what we're doing.
Correct.
Because it's impossible to have a feasibility study over the phone or with people calling in, because Carl, you've been here before, that we get houseful when that happens usually when we do the feasibility studies.
So we'll have staff prepare the document for the council meeting on the 14th with that change recommended by Councilor Johnson, and for us to vote on it at the next council meeting.
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, Councilor
Everybody
Beyond.
will have that again with the corrections before the
Right,
council meeting.
Councilor Freely.
I was just has no property in Virginia that's on a corner street and avenue will be duly assessed?
We have a clause in there that we look at that they, if they are impacted, that we look and reduce one side. So that there's a formula for that.
Actually, what we do, we've done in the past, we take away the least expensive of the two assessments and we go with the most expensive. But and that has to, if it happens within, I believe, and I still think it's a policy, 5-year time frame. Yeah. So if another project comes within 5 years, that one you won't get assessed at all on. So,
I mean, we have to do this because, and everybody's saying, these are the projects that need to be done, and there's no other way to do them without monies to pay for them. I mean, that's the reality. But right now, at this point in time, after looking at my taxes going up 100% on my properties, it's a time right now where we've talked about that before, this perfect storm, but I just hope the public realizes that in order to have things accomplished that you full well know needs to be done, revenue has to be raised to be able to pay for these things.
Absolutely. And I do want to point out that I was asked any projects that we have coming up in the foreseeable future for a federal project list. So I did submit this project list to a potential federal funding if something comes out as an infrastructure bond or something from the federal legislation. So we will keep just moving forward. We'll bring the drafted agreement or drafted policy to the next council meeting, and we'll keep working on it.
and like I said, with timing on this, this may get stretched out an extra year, it may go to 2025 instead of 24. So depending on how we can get all this, because there's a lot of work in a feasibility study. The feasibility studies are all done.
Just about. We have a few changes that we've made.
Okay,
So
that's
that's the
right,
next
that's
motion
right.
that we'll have to
Yeah,
talk about.
okay, all right. No, I forgot. Okay, thanks, Brad.
Thank you. So thank you. I will bring back the draft policy to the council meeting next week with the changes for permission to change at that meeting.
Okay, Councilor Beyondich and Councilor Paulson, those recommended changes that we discussed earlier, the entire package will be brought back forth to the City Council on the 14th for us to act upon.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is approve the SCH amendment for the 2021-2023 Street Infrastructure Project Feasibility Report. And Matt, do we have you on the phone?
Yep, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Well, good morning, everybody. In front of you, I had written a letter of fee amendment request. Britt had referenced that throughout the course of this project, we started out with the feasibility report, the scope of the project back early in the year here. And as things have progressed, there's been some desires to change some things and modify it based on the results that came out of the first round, the first couple of drafts. And so we just had some extra time that we had to spend on making those modifications. Everything is done already. We made the modifications. That report is complete, again, with the exception of updating the feasibility or the assessment related stuff, which now once this policy gets adopted at the next council meeting, we can go ahead and make those changes. All the spreadsheets and everything are set up, so it's an easy change. But anyway, on that letter that I wrote, I tried to spell out in detail the extra work that we had into this and everything that went along with it. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions or expand on this more if you'd like me to.
No questions from those who are present. Councilor Paulson, do you have any questions regarding the SCH amendment to the infrastructure feasibility report?
No, I'm good at this time.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Matt, so much for explaining that very detailed in the packet.
You're welcome.
Councilor Beyondich?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. So,
Just one comment, Mayor.
move
SCH
for-
is looking for a little additional dollars for the extra work. Of their original was a set fee of $4,000. They're looking for an extra $1,000, and I have no problem with that. They got to go through all those feasibility studies and the rest of that to do some work. So I have no problem with that.
so we're looking for a motion to approve the SCH amendment to this project feasibility study.
That is correct, right, Matt?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I would so move the amendment to move that forward, but that's not to exceed, I read $5,400 then? Okay.
Thank you. Motion by Councilor Freely to approve the amendment to the feasibility infrastructure project report with the codicil that doesn't exceed $5,400. Is there support?
All support.
Support by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Councilor Paulson, is it? Councilor Paulson is an aye?
Aye, yes.
And Councilor Beyondich, you're an aye?
Yes.
An aye for an aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is also from Matt from SEH. Review and accept bids for the 418 Pass-Through Park and Virginia Public Library entrance projects. These two projects were bid as, again, for the third time, as a project together. We had bid them separately last year. We tried again this year, trying to get a contractor to bid, and I will turn it over to you now, Matt.
Okay, good morning again. Let's see, so the library bids, we took bids on, might recall here a couple of months ago or a month or so ago, you gave us authorization to advertise for bids. We had decided, like Britt said, we had decided to try to combine two projects together in hopes that we might be able to be a little more economical with getting both projects done. My suspicion is, even though the bids came in higher than what we expected, actually considerably higher, my suspicion is it was still more economical bidding them together as opposed if we would have tried to bid them each individually separate. So hopefully we accomplished that. We don't have really any way of knowing, but I'm suspecting that it did. We got two bids. We sent it out to probably 7 or 8 contractors, I think. We did get the two bids back. We got one from Max Gray Construction and one from Lency Enterprises. The low bid,
We lost you, Matt.
Matt? Matt?
Matt, I can hear you. I'm on Zoom.
I can hear you perfectly fine.
Matt?
We can hear Counselor Beyondich and Paulson, but we can't hear. Oh, there you are, Matt. Gotcha again.
Matt?
I'm still here, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we
I
can.
can hear you, Matt. I can hear you as well.
We got you now.
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, how about now? All right. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there. All right, so back to, we had the Schedule A and Schedule B. A was the library, B was the 418 Bucket Park. Max Grade Construction, when you tally those two together, they were the low bidder by about $8,000. So if we were to move ahead with the project, I would recommend that we proceed with hiring Max Grade Construction to do so.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I have a couple questions before we move forward with that, and I know we bid these out separately before, and now we thought, because we felt that we would get more bids in, we combined the two. And I did have a conversation with our city administrator regarding the dual bid approach, and there was some discussion, Britt advised me regarding the mobilization fees when you combine the two projects together, and what would the cost associated with that. But looking at the dual bid, the concern that I have is it is significantly higher than we had anticipated, number one. And number two, by separating the two out, and you look at the local contractor, Lency, with the other contractor, Max Gray, which is somewhat local, by separating them out, it looks like we realize a savings of about $3,700 if you separated them out. However, there's a mobilization cost associated with that. So if you have two different contractors mobilizing individual projects, that might exceed the cost savings that we have. Would that be your sense, Matt?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm still concerned about, the cost on this bid project, but I'll defer that for discussion by other councilors. I don't see anybody's light on here, so I'll move to Councilor Freely.
Well, I've been in and out of the library, and I guess I'm not quite certain, is this a cosmetic type of effect, or is this ADA requirement?
This is an ADA grant we had received for improvements to the entrance.
But it's something we match.
It's something we match, and we had planned to do this last year. We put it out for bids, got 0 bids back. So then we put it out for bids again in August last year, got 1 bid back, which was very similar to the bid we got right here. So we thought, we'll wait 1 more year. Maybe it'll be better if we do it and bid it out in spring and do it as a package with 418 Chestnut.
But this is work that's required by ADA standards and requirements?
It's work that's needed. They are getting, there's a water correction issue into the elevator entrance. The way the sidewalk slopes, all the water pours back into the elevator entrance, and so it becomes glare ice all throughout the winter. And then all summer long when it rains, they're getting water into the door. So we're gonna correct that with some drainage. All those concrete barriers going up will be removed, so the kids can't skateboard on them anymore.
Okay.
And that'll be fixed. All the stairs will be fixed.
And so the out-of-pocket expense for going the bid, I mean, for the grants would be what to the city?
It's about half.
And
We have a grant for $92,000
And so we budgeted accordingly to cover the cost of that
last year.
for this?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the 418 pass-through park, I guess,
Yes.
like when I envision that, is that the one right next to like Cane Lakes and the?
Yes.
And so have we talked to Cane Lakes and/or Jim, and are they favorable to this?
Yes, the Cane Lakes actually bought the building. The Cane Lakes store is next to a building. There's a building and then 418. They bought that building between 418 and came to us, and we redesigned our plans based on what they suggested, what they had envisioned for the building that they just purchased, which is right next door to 418.
All right, so they've had.
And we have a grant for that as well. We have a grant for almost $45,000.
And those adjacent business owners are favorable to this?
Very favorable.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
They are willing to let us put murals on their walls. We're going to put awnings on their wall to go over a vendor that may locate in 418 that might complement what they have going on at the
Sounds good,
candy
thank
store.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. Councilor Paulson, do you have anything you'd like to add to this bid, the dual bid for both these projects moving forward?
Mayor, I mean, I really want to see these projects go forward, but I'd like to hear some more discussion regarding the cost. And I don't know if Rick can weigh in on that, or if Sherry needs to weigh in on that. But I really want to see these projects go forward. I'm just concerned about the cost, and maybe Matt can weigh in on that as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll defer you, Councilor Paulson, your question to our City Finance Director, Sherry Erickson, to talk about, the grant and the matching funds and what's budgeted for it, and then, and hopefully answer those questions that you have. Sherry?
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. Yes, Councilor Paulson, we're going to start with the library. It's an end grant agreement, so that means the city upfronts all of the project costs, and then we submit into the state and get reimbursed. I want you to know that we've already footed out a big chunk already, even last year, by putting the alarm system in. So some of these costs have already been prepaid with even last year's budget. I also have, for in the park, I have budgeted the grant reimbursement expense of $45,000 that Britt mentioned for the pocket park there. I'm calling it a pocket park. It's might be a different term. So it is budgeted. We've already expensed some of it, and just be aware that it is an end grant agreement for the library. That means we have to finish the project and then we get reimbursed.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councilor Paulson?
Yes, and it sets my mind at ease. So thank you so much, Sherry, for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Beyondich, anything that you would like to add?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We have Councilor Johnson.
Matt, do you have any estimate as to why, or what's the logic of them being significantly different? And I'm going line by line. Some of them are almost double. Is there any particular reason that you're aware of?
No, not specifically. I think the project it's a little more of a special in a small area. Those projects do tend to run a little bit higher. What that
We lost you again, Matt, sorry.
I think I get the gist of what you're trying to say to us, Matt. So I appreciate that. And
This isn't in the scope of things. This is a very small project.
and they bid high because they don't necessarily want to do them, maybe.
Right, it's kind of usually a filler job for these entities because it is a small project. It's not estimated to take very long, and it's a lot of finishing work with concrete. It's a lot of work.
And I would hope that some of the trees and stuff we can get locally at a better cost or something.
Our architect that we worked with, Todd from Kimley Horn,
Okay.
is still diligently working and expects to work with the contractor on doing a lot of local procurements.
Okay.
That the stone will come from northern, one of the northern monument places,
Okay.
that we're
And
really working
range
on. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, that's good. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Councilor Bearboot.
Yeah, Sherry, my only question is, looks like the differential between the two projects and what the bid came is $100,000, approximately $100,000. Do we have to pull out of our coffers? Am I correct on that?
Or, fairly close, yes, because,
It's $238 for the bid total, and it's $137 with the two grants.
and realize, that the library grant, it is a 50/50. It's a $184,000 project, 92,000 coming from the state, and the city would have to put in 92,000, which we've already put in.
Yeah, but my question was the total.
The
So-
total, yes.
So we got extra costs already above and beyond the 184,000, or was that already done?
No, 180, there will be more costs coming in, but it's a 50/50. So we've already upfront, we had to pay the whole 100%. We can get reimbursed 50% back.
I understand that. So the work that was already done, that wasn't in this bid project, though.
No,
So we're putting in more than 238,000. That's my point.
correct.
Okay. You have the money for it?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm okay with it.
Sherry and I have had many meetings about this over the last couple days.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Bearable. Counselor Paulson, any questions?
No, not at this time, but I do have to say I'm having a little bit difficulty hearing all of you that are probably on your microphones. I don't know if Maya or anyone else, Matt, is experiencing that. And I'm not sure if it's possible for you to talk a little bit closer into your microphone.
Sure, we can do that. Does that sound good right now?
It's much better. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll try to do that. Counselor Beyondich, anything that you'd like to add before we move forward with the potential bid process, approving the dual bid for the pass-through park and for the library?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other council have any questions or concerns? I see none. So I would this time look to entertain a motion to either move forward or not move forward with the approval of the bid awarding Max Gray the project.
Also move, Mayor.
Moved by Councilor Bearable to approve the project, dual project with Max Gray for both the pass-through park and the library improvements. Is there support?
Or
Support by Councilor Johnson and support by Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. Councilor Beyondich?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the authorization to advertise for bids for the Bailey Lakes Trail Project. Unfortunately, Matt and I have been working on this to the very single last minute, so unfortunately your letters came out late. They are on your desk here in the office, and I did email them to everybody, Councilor Beyondich and Councilor Paulson. And I'm going to turn it back over to Matt again. Matt, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. Yeah, so as Britt said, we apologize for the last minute submittal there, but we have been working diligently. Late last week, we had some final tweaks and changes that we discussed to try to bring this thing back to more within budget in the original estimate that we had put together based on the wants and the needs of the project was quite a bit higher than what we had funding available. So we did some value engineering and got it trimmed back to what we think is going to be still a very nice project, but we'll have to phase in some of the items later on down the road. And I'm not going to get into all of that unless you'd like me to. But what we're looking for right now is authorization to advertise for bids with anticipation that we would send it out. First advertisement would be on this Friday. If that is acceptable to you, we'll advertise for 3 weeks, open bids the first May. I think May the date. And then on May 5th, things are at to discuss if we want to move project.
We lost you again, Matt.
Anybody has any questions? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Yep.
Okay, yep. No, that's all I had. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think what we missed was that you want to go out for bids with the bids being turned in May 4th. If we go out for bids this Friday, they have till May 4th, and then we'll discuss on May 5th.
Yes, correct.
Committee of the whole meeting.
I would move to authorize staff to go out for bids.
Moved by Councilor Johnson to approve moving out for bids for this project. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Bearable. Okay, none. Okay. Hearing no other further discussion, Councilor Friedlieb has some discussion. Councilor Friedlieb.
Well, I just can't find the information, but I thought I saw there was about a $25,000 disparity between what we would be granted versus what we would pay.
Yes, and we actually, the Lakes Beautification Committee has a fund with the city. And in their fund at this moment, they have $125,000. They have committed to using their fund to pay anything that's over and above and beyond.
All right, so that's been covered.
It has been covered.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor Friedlieb. Councilor Paulson, any discussion regarding moving forward with going for the bids for the Bailey Lake project?
Mayor.
Okay, Counselor Beyondich?
No, thank you.
Okay, so it's been moved and supported to go out for bids for the Bailey's Lake Trail project. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is a review and accept quote for the Owens Field Stadium demolition, MEC Phase 1. And we have people from Kraus Anderson on the phone.
Yes, sorry about that. Hi, good morning. This is Steve Trudeau with Kraus Anderson.
Morning, Steve.
Good morning.
So give us an overview, please.
So this is the first phase, if you will, of the Miners Event and Convention Center project. In order to get that project started, we are looking at some building demolition. This particular proposal only includes the football stadium and track surfacing demolition. We took bids, received 4 proposals, I believe. The low proposal we received was from Wasabi Bituminous. So together with our costs in managing the project, the proposal to complete that portion is $144,391.44. We're asking for authorization to proceed with work. Britt, I believe that's contingent on an IRRB successful grant application. Is that correct?
That is correct. IRRB has indicated that if we put a grant application in, they will consider it for funding, and the application is in. I'm just waiting to hear back from the IRRR.
Yeah, and this is pursuant to the meeting that we all had there a couple weeks back. So thank you, Steve, for that. We're having the counselors look through this. They've had it in their packet now, and so we're looking for a motion from the council or to move forward with this with discussion to follow. Do I have a motion from the council to move forward with the demolition part of the MEC Center?
Also move, Mayor.
Moved by Councilor Bearboom and supported by, was that you, Councilor Paulson?
Yes, I'll support that motion.
Thank you. Supported by Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
I had to get up, Mayor. The pews are not meant for 3 hours worth of meetings, 2 days in a row.
Well, that's why I'm standing here.
My question is now we've broke the demolition as a completely separate project, so this is not, we're not putting any of our D3 funding in peril by moving forward. Is that
Correct. It's our state legislator funding is not going to be used for this. We're hoping to use IRRB funding. So I do ask that this motion is contingent upon final determination from IRRB.
Okay. Yep, and I just want to clarify that as we're moving, this is because we need to take the stadium down no matter what goes there moving forward. So this is that first step in future economic development.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
So the motion is moved and supported, Councilor Paulson supported, moving forward with the demolition portion of, and the bids awarded to Wasabi Bituminous as the low bid to move forward, provided that we receive funding from the IRRB demolition grant program. Is that your understanding of the motion? It's not Councilor Bearboom's understanding of the motion. What is your understanding of the motion, Councilor Bearboom?
My understanding is that we have to do this. If you don't, the whole miners project is shot. That was not my motion to be contingent. It was to do it.
However, if this project starts before we're awarded funds from IRRB, we will not be able to access IRRB funds.
This is going to put the whole time frame and the whole thing on hold. And that's my concern.
It
We've
should
got-
not. I talked to the IRRB yesterday. They sent it for scoring yesterday, so we should have determination very soon.
And we did have our meeting, Counselor Bearable, just yeah, for your information, that there was, well, that the funding would be available for us. So,
Well, it'd have
so
been
the
nice
motion,
to-
the motion by Counselor Bearable was not to have it contingent upon. The motion by
I'll
Counselor
cha-
Bearable.
I'll change it to be contingent if we can get an okay on the second. I'll
Okay.
change it to be
Okay,
contingent.
Counselor Bearable amends his motion to move forward with the awarding of the demolition grant to Basaba Bituminous contingent upon funding from the IRRB. Would that be, you're still going to second that, Counselor Paulson, with that amendment contingent upon?
Yes, Mayor, I will amend my second.
Okay, moved by Counselor Bearable and supported by Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bearable.
Just, Britt, a time frame approximately with IRRB, how long?
I hope to know by next Tuesday for the council meeting.
Next Tuesday, okay.
So when we do the final bid award, we can have that information.
Okay. If we, may I ask a favor, please? If
Yes.
we have these come up again on our agendas, we got the bids and stuff, put a little note along that we want to look at contingencies and stuff in the future. Because that kind of puts you in no man's land when you're sitting here, when we just all of a sudden, if you don't mind doing that.
I don't mind
please.
at all.
Can be a one sentence email to us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Bearable. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Counselor Paulson?
Aye.
Okay, Counselor Beyondich?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a review and accept quote from Midwest Playscapes for the purchase of playground equipment at Pine Mill Court. In your packet, I did break down the information about the grant funding we have received. We received $5,000 from the Virginia Community Foundation for this project. And additionally, from the $50,000 we received from the sale of property to the school, the council had previously dedicated $25,000 of those funds to this project as well.
And we have the funding for that to be fully funded.
This was again a project we were going to do last year that we put on hold until this year.
Okay, and we have the funding for that, right, Sherry? So we do. So
I'll move the continuation of that project then.
moved by Counselor Freely to move forward with the Pine Mill Court project. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Support by Counselor Johnson for the discussion. Further discussion, Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a great project. I'm really excited about this because when I worked at the child care center there, probably going on 10 years ago, the equipment was okay, and that is part of the child care center licensing requirements is to have safe playground equipment. And so to bring brand new equipment to that facility and then to that community, it's very well utilized over there. So I'm really excited that we are able to do this and that the city is investing our money too in this. So I think this is a great opportunity as we move forward.
And I certainly hope that they have get another healthcare provider in, or I mean a child care provider in there. So sometime soon, I know they're working on that. So, and this will help to do so. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Counselor Paulson, any further discussion on the Pine Mill Court project for the playground equipment?
No, Mayor, I'm excited to support this, and thank you, Steve, for that dissertation. I think this is going to be a great park for that location.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich?
No, it all sounds very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Counselor Freely?
Just really quickly, these costs then include the labor and installation.
No, that is above and beyond. However, it depends on the COVID. When these arrive, if our staff is still on the temporary furlough we have, they'll be doing all the installation.
We will, okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right,
it's took it out for now, anticipating that this arrival will be sometime in June and that our staff will still be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Counselor Beyondich?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the replacement of the access control system at City Hall. We had applied for and received a grant from the Minnesota Department of Labor OSHA grant to replace the door locks at City Hall. The reason for this request is the existing door locks that we have are old. They're pretty antiquated. The police chief has to keep one laptop that has the program on there because we can't install it on any of the newer systems to go to each door to physically program them. We can't get parts for any of the locks anymore, and we can't upgrade the system. So our lock system is very, very antiquated. So we had received some quotes and applied for our OSHA grant. The OSHA grant was for $10,000. And so they are asking that we do a resolution accepting the OSHA grant for $10,000 for the door lock system.
Very good. And the system we're going to put in is for later on discussion.
That's the next discussion. We can talk about that too. The proposals that we received are they're very differently.
Yeah.
I have received proposals from two vendors, Permar Security and Banco Systems Group. Permar Security offered two different solutions. They offered a solution that we would purchase the system outright, or that we could lease the system, depending on what we would prefer to do. If we lease it, they own all the equipment. If we purchase it, of course, then we own the equipment.
So you're asking the motion, the first motion is to...
The first motion is to accept the grant. Do we want to accept the grant, which would require us to then replace the door lock system? If we accept that, which company would you like to go with?
Okay, very good. So the first motion we're asking for, Councillor Paulson and Councillor Beyondich, we're looking for a motion to move forward with accepting the OSHA grant funding of $10,000 for the replacement improvement of the door lock systems in the City Hall. Do I have a motion to accept these funds?
Also move, Mayor.
Moved by Councillor... I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just going to make a motion, but I'll go ahead and second it.
Okay, moved by Councillor Baraboo and seconded by Councillor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Does anybody have any further discussion? Councillor Paulson, any further discussion?
No, not at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And to talk about the system proposals that we received, this new system will be cards. So there'll be card access, it'll be ID badges. We will have the ability to do them remotely. So if we say we forgot to lock the main doors on City Hall and we can set it up, the system notifies us that any of the doors are open after 7 o'clock. It texts somebody or emails somebody and lets them know, hey, the doors are still open. You might want to lock them. I'm assuming it's going to be the police chief will have access from her phone to lock the doors. If there's such a case as an active shooter, all of us in the building will have the ability to lock the doors down. We'll go into lockdown mode. Building will lock down, all doors locked, can't get in, nobody can move, everybody's got to stay shut. So it's going to be a much more expanded, elaborate system, which is why the cost is a little bit higher than our original system. So discussion, like I mentioned, Permar Security quoted either a purchase or a lease, and then Banco Systems proposed just a purchase. Permar included the installation as part of their bids. Banco does not do installation, so we'd have to find an electrician to do that for us. And Permar does do monitoring, so they are the firm that would, they'd also be the ones that would call us and say, hey, did you realize your door's open at 10 o'clock on a Saturday? You know, we'd have somebody actually watching, where Banco does not do that.
Okay.
So it's up to the council's choice. I think any of them would be wonderful. I think they'd be fine.
Okay, thank you, Britt. I have a couple of questions with respect to this system. The reason is because years ago, I know it's been a while, but we put a totally computerized card access control system at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. At that particular time, it was state-of-the-art, in which you had a lot of access control into your facilities. You can control the time in which people access to a door. You could limit their access to 2 hours a day or 5 hours a day. You can lock them out if you want. And so this gives a lot of authority for us to control the access points here. from my perspective, I think it's something we should be able to control on a regular basis. I don't necessarily believe that we should be leasing this out because we have local control over our door lock systems now. We'll be able to modify those and have internal notification as opposed to external notifications about how that works forward. And based on my experience before, we had a control system, people operating the facility, and this particularly went through the police department, through our security control system, and it really worked out well. The individual airlines had their own ability to control access to their points, and we had to the thing. So my question to you would be, after all that dissertation, would we have that ability to do?
Yes, we would have access to the program so that we can control. If we know that there's going to be a meeting on a Saturday, we can give out key cards to a group of people that here's your ability to get in on Saturday. It's only available from 8 to 4. After that, it locks like a hotel key. You can't get back in.
So my second question would be with respect to the badging system.
Yes.
If we did a badging system, if it's a key control card, would that key control card have your picture and your name on it and the areas that you're going to access, not just a regular hotel card? Is that correct?
Correct.
Very
All
good.
staff will have ID badges then to get into City Hall.
Very good, thank you. And that includes the elected officials?
Those elected officials.
Okay, in the event, and each badge would be numbered. In the
Correct.
event that there's a loss, that badge could be taken out of the system and deleted.
Correct. Or if an employee retires, quits, whatever it may be, we can lock them out, essentially deactivate their card. Sherry and I had discussed that we would give the first ones free to all employees. Anything after that would be the cost of the employee. They would be responsible for replacement of their ID badge.
Okay, very good. I think the same similar IT-based system we had down in the metro, where we did a badging, we had a badging system, and we control that. And so this is the similar, probably more state-of-the-art than we had back then. So
It's very neat. It's light years ahead of what we have right now.
yes, very good. Thank you, Britt. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, I just had one question. Britt, I'm assuming it'll be on the main doors coming into City Hall too, because
Yeah, the main access
tired
doors.
of calling.
Rather than having to call us in, yes, we could get you guys
In
in.
case we end up with something like
Yes,
this again.
Yes.
Now, will the counselors will have access to any of the offices like we do now?
Correct, yes.
Okay, all right.
The only doors that will not have it will be the committee room, and the council chambers will still be keyed as normal because we just usually leave those open.
Yeah.
But every other
no,
door that has a
that's-
lock on it now would have a lock.
That's fine.
Yep.
Because sometimes, we just go to like Chris Johnson's office to get our
Or engineering,
computers
or wherever we may need to
Yeah,
go. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Installation could be a challenge in this old facility, but this is a long-needed
It is a
improvement
long-needed.
for the
And
security
on the
of this
police
building.
side, it gives Nicole better access of who was in the building this weekend, who was here, because staff does occasionally come in. They can have ability to know at least what time was somebody here, who was here, what was going on.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
And so,
I have a question.
yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. How many locks does that include, Britt?
13.
13. And my question would be, would there be a ability to have maybe one or two more additional locks? And I'm thinking regarding the Klein Cupoletti building.
Yes, we are actually looking, and I think Brian Silber left, but we are actually looking at putting this exact same system citywide, rolling it out eventually. Once we get the main server here at City Hall, then we can work on getting it rolled out to additional buildings.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And then this is, of course, an expandable program.
Expandable program. We had looked at originally adding this to the library system and to the fire hall system, but it chose to wait at this time because of cost. Initially get it set up, and then we'll start expanding it to other facilities. Because the intent is that our employees don't have to have 3 key cards. They'd have 1 key card to get into city buildings. Not have
And the other is to have a guarantee that this system is going to continue to be able to have a product being able to provide for the long term.
This is expandable, yep.
So thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Councilor Paulson, that was one of my questions about other buildings, so that's a check off. The keys, you covered that. And then I guess I would request that these 2 rooms do have that option to lock down in the future.
Definitely.
For our safety.
Yes.
If there's someone is stopped downstairs, the ability for you to lock these 2 rooms, in case of a meeting or something, I think that I'm not an alarmist, but a realist, and I think in the future that may be something that would be needed. So, my other question, I guess, is, do we have the electrical contractor on staff to do this, or we would have to hire out the contracting part of it?
If we chose to go with Banco, we'd have to hire a third
Okay.
party.
And then Sherry, I guess for you financially from the lease versus owning, is there a benefit to leasing the information or leasing it as opposed to buying it outright?
My personal opinion on this is to lease it, and I realize there's a $925 a month maintenance fee.
$6,000 a year more to lease,
But I just go back to our cameras citywide.
total.
It's been a headache. It's been a headache since day one. And I'd just like to say, hey, this is your equipment. Come in here and fix it.
I appreciate that perspective. I guess that's exactly what I was looking for.
I'm sorry, I misstated. It's $1,000 a year more if we lease versus own.
You know, and that's always been the argument, do you lease it, do you own it, depending upon the large project, how things are moving forward. And so I think that, you know, the lease to own option, whichever one we go with, is going to be something where we'll be moving forward to, hopefully right now, make a decision to lease or to own. And one of the quotes is to lease, and the other one is you can't lease, you have to buy it outright, right? And so the concern that I have is we have only 2 quotes here. And I know other companies that are very proficient in providing state-of-the-art equipment and having that available for the long haul. And if a system goes wrong, or if there's an upgrade to the system, they provide that upgrade for you based upon your fee-for-service contract that you have, if you're going to lease the program. So when you own it, you're buying new product. If that product no longer becomes available, then you have to put a whole new system in. So there's a lot of, you know, pros and cons about whether you should lease or purchase. So Councilor Barnzelli, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Britt, what are we going to do with the old ones?
The old locks?
Could we sell them? I know there's
We
only.
probably could actually, because the parts are impossible to find. The last 2 times we bought parts, we bought them on eBay. So we probably could sell ours for parts to somebody else that's got them.
These are cipher locks, Councilor Barnzelli, and cipher locks are so old and antiquated. They're battery operated and really serve no useful purpose at this point in time.
Weren't those the ones that they just put on maybe 4 or 5 years ago?
It was about 6 or 7 years ago, yeah.
It was a stopgap measure because he didn't have the money to buy a good system, so we bought a gap system. And the gap system is, you know, not working very well. I mean, it's controlling some access, but I still think that, you know, to your point about selling the locks, we could put them on eBay, but whatever you get for them, you get for them. But they really serve no useful purpose to anybody, you know, other than a private person or something, but we could sell them.
Are there 13 of them?
We're expanding what we have. Right now, we don't have 13. We're going to go to 13, because the main doors will also have these locks.
Okay.
Yeah, the mayor doesn't have a cipher lock. The mayor's got a key dog because there were no cipher locks available. It wasn't possible to put one on that door because of the way he comes in and out. So what does that tell you? Councilor Johnson?
And if we move forward with this, we'll be working with Amoresco and not be installing them until our envelope doors are put in
Yeah, it's going to be a little while.
Okay.
Until they have to order equipment, and I don't know where that's coming from. I mean, I'm hearing from many, many, many people that supplies are hard to get right now
Okay.
anywhere, so I anticipate it'll be a little bit.
Okay, I guess I would move, just to further this along, that we lease the equipment from Permar Security and make sure we have a decent contract and such with them.
Is there support for that? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. It was moved by Councilor Johnson and supported by Councilor Barnzelli, if you heard that, Councilor Paulson and Councilor Beyondich, to move forward with the lease agreement with Permar Security for the providing of the upgraded security door system for the City Hall. It's been moved and supported. Is there any
Yes,
further
I heard
discussion?
that.
Okay, is there any further discussion? I have one real quickly. I'm going to vote no on this because I would like to see the companies come and make a presentation to the council. I don't know anything about Bancor. I know a little bit. I know something about Permar, which is a bulk provider of security systems for home and office. This is my perspective on things. So I would like to see these I'd like to hear from what they have to offer instead of reading through that document. But did you have a comment you'd like to make? Okay, I would like to see that done before we move forward with awarding it to Permar. I'd like to see a presentation for us as to what's going to offer and see a demonstration of that before we move forward approving a lease agreement. Sherry, go ahead. Anything else? You're good? Okay, so it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion, Councilor Bearable?
I kind of agree that we should take a look if there's other companies out there that can provide these same things, and maybe we can get some better bids out of this, unless you've gone to more than these two companies.
I did have another bid that was not apples to apples, so it did not bring with me to this.
Okay.
It was a lot higher,
higher,
over $100,000.
I do agree with the leasing concept because that includes maintenance usually, too, where the other,
Correct.
if you own them, doesn't include maintenance.
Correct.
Usually.
Correct. And, and if it wasn't COVID pandemic right now, I would suggest that we go to other facilities to look at. Permar is at, I know it's at the East Range PD in White Lakes, and they have a couple other sites up here. I don't know how we can get in them right now to look at their systems.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't want to see what they have to offer, see a demonstration of that, even if we have to delay it. The lease I agree with, but I'm going to vote no on awarding to Permar until I can see exactly what they have to offer. That's my perspective. So any further discussion on this matter? Any further discussion, Councilor Paulson?
No, not at this time.
Okay, Councilor Beyondich?
No, thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and supported to move forward with a lease for the security locks system for the doors in City Hall. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye for Councilor Paulson and Councilor Beyondich?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, aye. Opposed? No. Okay, Pam, are you still on the line?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
I
can.
am.
Okay,
Okay. Beyondich,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Baranzelli,
Yes.
Cuffey,
no.
Marabou,
No,
Friedlieb,
Yes.
Paulson.
Yes.
this is 5-2.
Did everybody answer? Okay, motion passes
Yes, I
five.
got everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Pam.
Pam. Motion passes 5-2. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the review and adopt a resolution approving transfers to recommended funds for year ending December 31st, 2019. And I will refer to Sherry on this one.
Hi, Council. This is year-end housekeeping. We actually are doing the audit online. So this is something new. This is cool. And it's actually progressing quite along, faster, I think, than in the past, but don't say that, please. So anyway, these are year-end transfers. In the resolution, if you've had time to read through it, we've had to take from general fund with the following allocations, and the total from general fund was $441,889.76. $441,889.76.
Thank you.
Oops.
Great, thank you. So the action you need is to approve?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, did you have something else,
Yes,
Sherry?
and then I was going to go further, to general fund with the following allocations. So basically, general fund borrowed or sustained projects during the year, and then to zero them out, we have to move back to general fund what the projects had borrowed.
And this is a common practice we've done on an annual
Every year.
basis? Every
Yeah.
year. Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson, did you hear that report from Sherry with respect to the to and from transfers that we have to do as part of our process for the audit?
Yes, Mayor, I did hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Beyondich?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Bearable?
I will so move that we authorize a resolution balancing out the year-end fund balance of ending December 31st, 2019.
A move by Counselor Bearable to approve the resolution transferring the funds. Is there support for that? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich, any further discussion?
No, thank you.
Counselor Paulson?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
All are in favor. No opposition. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 11 is to discuss the proposed increase to garbage tipping fees. And first, I want to apologize. My memo has a subject line that is incorrect. I apologize for that. In your packet, I did place a memo in there stating that the issue that we are having is that the county keeps raising their tipping fees, and we have not raised our tipping fees for the last few years. In 2018 and 19, we did not collect enough tipping fees to cover the costs that were charged to us by the county. We are averaging about $10,000 to $15,000 short per year. And with the county increasing again in 2019 for effective 2020, we are going to be very short, about $40,000 in 2020 if we don't increase our tipping fees. Historically, what happens is we've been covering the cost of the tipping fees with the city garbage funds. So on your utility bill, you'll notice that there's a city garbage rate and then there's a county tipping fee. And the county tipping fee has not been increased for many, many, many years. It still remains for residential residents, $4.83. And then for commercial businesses, it's $7 per month.
That's the increase?
That's what it has been.
That's what has been. Okay, thank you.
For numerous years, for at
Right.
least, I would say 10 to 12 years.
Okay. So your recommendation, Britt, is?
And nobody likes to discuss increases in garbage rates, but I would like to reiterate that this is directly in proportion to the county has again increased the tipping fees at this, when we bring the garbage up to the county landfill. So if we were to raise this on their utility bills, they will see an increase on the county tipping fee line item on their utility bill.
And the amount for the public discussion is how much?
It's really up to the council to
Okay,
decide.
okay, we're going to make that
It's
determination.
determination. I would suggest that, Sherry and I have gone back and forth a couple times about this. The minimum we should increase it is at least $1. But again, is the county going to raise it again next year? Is there a point that we try to get ahead of what the county is doing, or I really struggle with this. And I don't know that I have a good recommendation, except for the fact that we have to look at doing something because we have been subsidizing this for way too long.
Yeah, thank you. And I got to say that, from my perspective, we raise the rates, which we think we have to do. It's an unfunded mandate. It's a requirement that we do so. We have an enterprise fund that operates our garbage service. We're continuing to operate at a deficit, and over time, we have to be solvent in that regard. That takes care of all our garbage equipment, pays all those kind of fees, and that's the purpose of the enterprise fund. So we have to maintain that level. And so for me, as an elected official, if we're going to raise it, we have to raise it according to what could it be expanded in the future. We can always make an adjustments later on down the road, but to raise it now and then maybe have to raise it again a year or 2 years from now, that really, I don't think that is digestible very well for the public. And so I think we have to make a decision one way or the other to look toward the future. And if adjustments have to be made, we can make adjustments downward as opposed to upward. So, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. My suggestion, and I don't know if we can do this if it's a legal thing, is that as a city, we put into place that our tipping fees will be whatever the county is charging plus 10%. That way, if they raise it next year, automatically it'll go up and we'll automatically cover ourselves. And then that helps to cover the cost. We at least are building, and we have a little bit when it comes to the garbage trucks that are transporting the garbage. So that would be my recommendation, that whatever the county's billing us, plus 10% or a percentage that is reasonable. And then I can explain to the people who ask me, well, the county raised it, and the extra 37 cents or whatever it is so that we can continue to build with, when it comes to our trucks and stuff. So I would look to our attorney if that's even feasible, and if it is, that's what I'd like to see happen.
And then you'd like to see that percentage transfer, equated into a dollar amount on the utility bill.
Right, so they've raised their tipping fee. What is the current tipping fee for residential?
$4.83 per month.
Okay, so $4.83, so 10% of that was 48 cents. So the total cost would be $5 and whatever the change is. And then next year, if they raise it up to $5, then the total cost to our residents would be $5.50. So that it would just be an automatic escalator. When they raise it, could automatically go up.
Because what happens is we get charged per ton, so it's $55 per ton now. And so we don't have a good way, unless we do individual cans, of figuring out how much is residential and how much is commercial. We just kind of do a guesstimate. And
Okay.
for a long time, it's been $4.83 for residential and $7 for commercial. Just guessing that commercial puts more tonnage in than
You're right.
residents do.
So if we could come up with a formula that allows an automatic escalator, I guess that's where I'm at, is to the mayor's point of coming back in 2 years because the county has raised it again because their costs have gone up. If we can have that, and then obviously we would approve it every time. I think that's important that the council would.
Be part of our annual.
Yep, we would say that the county went up, so we are authorizing the automatic escalation, but just so the calculation is there, and it's not an arbitrary number based on what we think or hope. You know, I'm guessing our tonnage in the next 2 or 3 months, that may be going up, because I know right now my front porch is full of recyclables and I'm trying to find the time to load it into the back of my vehicle and bring it to one of the county sites, as opposed to just putting it out and it magically disappears on Monday morning. So that would be my suggestion moving forward.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Beyondich had a question. Councilor Beyondich?
Thank you. I also agree that I think we do have to raise the rate. We haven't raised them for a while, and we can't continue to go backwards on this. And I know that some people have, since the recycling, or we haven't done the blue bags, people are putting more into the garbage than into recycling. So I am in total agreement that I think we have to do something and continue the fund. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson, any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the one comment that I'd like to ask is, can we, without giving any notice, raise our ambulance rates to the county to make up for this deficit? That was said with tongue in cheek.
Okay, because we can make a request, but there's a whole bunch of issues with EMS and trying to tax on, it's almost like a tax. Okay, all right. I get you what your point is. Thank you very much. Ingesting a little humor into this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Freely.
Kind of like Councilor Johnson's suggestion, but Sherry, would you then need to do the math to determine what those percentage increases would be to be able to maintain the enterprise fund and
Correct.
cover the costs of the increases in county?
You're right, Counselor Philip. And besides, we are behind the 8 ball already. We are also behind purchasing 2 garbage trucks. We keep pushing it down the road because we don't have sufficient funds in there because we're subsidizing.
But so should you do the math and come up with a percentage that's according, then this is a good suggestion, or have you already put together a table that would be preferable and beneficial to what our needs are currently?
In our packet.
In your packet, we prepared a flat dollar amount increase. We didn't prepare a percentage increase, but we certainly could do a percentage increase for discussion.
The intent would be then to not have to go back the following year and say we needed to raise it another % or dollar amount or whatever.
And that's where Sherry and I have a lot of discussion because nobody likes to see a continual raise every single year. So if we can do enough that we don't have to do it for a while again, that would be the hope and the intent.
So you'd want us to make a resolution to move forward with the increase to cover the costs of the increase from the county, but to be determined what percentage. Okay.
If you want to do percentage, we definitely can make a table like this, what's in your packet, and kind of show you
I
what.
guess what I'm asking is
thought
that
is-
advisable from your bookkeeping perspective, or did you already do the math and you were ready to move forward on the recommendation as already provided?
Mayor, Councilor Philip, I appreciate the foresight to go ahead and forecast, but we're behind the eight ball, so yes, my suggestion was $5 more. And then we can explore that. It's a two-part thing here. We can explore putting a percentage on there, but we're behind.
So that means each residence would go up $5
Month.
a month. But then if you did it percentagely, then that would be the same anyhow.
No.
I mean, eventually. I mean, whatever percentage you put on it currently, that would have to match the $5 you're seeking anyhow. It would just eliminate the potential for having an annual increase. Regardless, we have to raise these fees.
The fact of the matter is we have to do something because for the last 2 years, the county portion of our garbage service has been subsidized by the city portion of our garbage service. So we have to stop that and figure out how to correct that.
Getting to the point where you gave us a recommendation for the $5. Ideally, that would be enacted currently and the percentage could be done so after the fact, or would you want to do that simultaneously?
I would suggest after the fact.
Okay, before we go to Councilor Baraboo, we had budgeted for a new, garbage truck, which we haven't purchased. And that was 2 years ago, right? So my concern is about the enterprise fund for the garbage. Is there enough money? And if we're going to make a raise, whether it's a percentage or a dollar amount, is that going to be enough money to cover the cost of being able to purchase these garbage trucks, which have been held in abeyance because of the enterprise fund balance to some degree? So how are we going to make sure that we're going to be able to fund it appropriately so that we can operate this facility in a manner that's going to keep the enterprise fund, solvent? And so if you're asking, Sherry, I think for a $5 increase, and then later on having us consider a potential percentage increase, or we're just looking at a percentage increase as opposed to the $5 increase, I'm good with either one of those, provided that we have enough money in the fund to cover the costs associated with what we need to cover our garbage service commercially and residentially. So I like the fixed $5 figure to begin with, and look at down the road, in the event that the county does increase their tipping fees, is this $5 going to be enough? So we'd have to do it twice as opposed to just once. So if we do go through a percentage and that the percentage doesn't equate the $5 increase for both, so the $5 request is for both commercial $5 increase and residential $5 increase.
County tipping fee, because remember on your utility
Right.
bill, you have two different lines of garbage. One is the city garbage and one is the county garbage.
So we're
We're
raising
talking
it.
about the county tipping fee
Okay.
line on your utility bill.
Right, I'm sorry, thank you. That's what I misspoke, but yes.
Because
county tipping
normally
fee.
the city garbage fee, it was supposed to pay for your garbage service in the vehicles.
Right.
And the county tipping fee is supposed to cover the cost we pay to the county to dump the garbage.
So I guess I was trying to get to that point, I think, where, we raise the tipping fees, that's fine, that covers the tipping fees, but does that address our garbage service fund balance and our enterprise fund for our city garbage service? I guess that's what I'm looking at. So that'd be a question to discuss.
Not historically.
Not historically?
Not historically, no.
So historically, it was what, Britt?
Historically, it's been $4.83 for as long as I've worked here, so
Right,
almost 20 years.
You're right, you're right. I mean, I agree, that has to go up. But
It's gotta
then-
go up,
So if that tipping fee goes up, is our garbage rate that we currently charge enough to cover the cost of our garbage enterprise fund?
And that's a whole separate discussion.
That's a separate discussion?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so I'll reserve that for a separate discussion. So this is the tipping fees, we're asking $5
Right,
increase.
because do you remember last year, we did do a substantial increase in garbage
We
fees
did.
for multifamily units.
Mhm.
So we did make that adjustment
Right.
last year.
So this is separate from that?
This is separate from that.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. I should have known that, but thank you for the clarification. Counselor Bearable.
Maybe I can settle this whole issue.
I hope so.
Is there more fees coming? Do you know what the county's doing?
Get some more cash?
No, the tipping fees are going up about 11, I shouldn't say that, the per ton fee is going up $11 approximately. That's with the tonnage we used last year, is $60,500 that our fees will increase this year. So with the $5 increase, we've got a generation of $212,000. So you've basically doubled up your $60,000 cost for this year. So you may get by. The county typically has been doing their increase every 2 years, so we can probably get by for 2 years with that $5 increase when we put it in the tipping fee, so we can blame the county for this, not us. And then
You're right,
Sherry,
Councilor Bearable,
then
just to point out
Sherry
we
and-
should.
Then Sherry and Britt should just make sure before we actually vote on it, says that's large enough, as the mayor said, for a garbage truck with this enterprise fund. Because we got to get one this next fall, I'm guessing. We got to, for 2021.
And it wasn't necessarily just the enterprise fund, it was also because we put a kibosh on purchasing the garbage truck because of the Highway 53. We all of a sudden had that $5.4 million bill that we couldn't get funded, so we put a kibosh on all purchasing. Not necessarily because of the enterprise fund was underwater because of the tipping fees, but it was no purchasing of any equipment, no matter what department you're in, because of the $5.4 million.
But then we're going to be looking at probably in 2 more years after we get the first garbage truck, another garbage truck. So we're going to really get behind the 8 ball. So I agree with the mayor in part, but I think the $5 increase right now will cover us for the tipping fees, because typically the county has not raised their tipping fees other than, the last I saw was 14, 16, 18, 20.
Correct.
They've been doing it every 2 years. And I also had a conversation with Mark St. Lawrence, raising heck with him about what they're doing, that they don't let us know prior to our budget time.
Right, we did not find out about this till
So
October, which is after our
he
budget was
guaranteed
set.
that would not happen any longer, and he figured he did say it'd probably be 2 more years before they raise it again. So this would cover us. I do not like the percentage, too much work for Sherry. And also, once we figure out something, but you gotta remember, we got the utilities involved, they gotta get this all programmed too. Yeah, it'd take 30 days for them to do that. So if we wanna start, I think we should start it this year, personally. That's enough said.
Thank you, Counselor Bearable. Counselor Paulson, any comments, questions?
I guess I do want some clarification. So the current rate right now is what?
For residential, it's $4.83. For commercial, it's $7, and that's the monthly fee for the county tipping fees.
County, correct. But so what we're asking is to add $5 onto that, so it would be a total of $9 and something for residential?
Correct. And then for commercial, it would be 12.
So adding 5 to commercial and residential.
Correct.
And how will that impact, like, say, the Washington Manor folks?
That's a great question. That's exactly what's going to happen, is they had just set their budget as well, and then we're going to increase it.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about that, and I think they have commercial dumpsters, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I would actually be more comfortable going higher with a commercial rate, although that would affect them more adversely, rather than having that equilibrium across residential and commercial.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich, anything?
Nothing more to add, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Bearable?
Mayor, I don't believe that the Washington Manor residents pay individual garbage rates. It's by the canisters that are there, the commercial canisters, right? The total. You know that offhand, Britt? I don't know if they have, because I don't think they get individual utility bills other than cable. Because they don't get water, I know.
Because we
costs.
had the modified garbage rate for them because they did a step-up increase when we modified the city rate.
But I don't think they get individual bills, do they? We'll go find out, okay, because that would be a question mark on that. But we still have to increase those tipping fees. I don't care. We can't do this because by state law, we cannot take taxpayer dollars and put it into enterprise funds. You could borrow for a short term, but you got to make it back up.
Correct.
But you can't expend it on an enterprise fund. That's required by state law. They have to at least break even.
Correct.
And if we continue on this path, we'd never be able to buy a garbage truck.
Correct.
So we need to do that because I've seen a couple times now they've broken hoses in my alley this year. So that's a small expense, but still they're getting to be a number of years old and they take a beating. As people put everything in there from chunks of iron to everything to screw up the augers and everything on them.
Counselor Johnson?
I seem to remember when Dana was here, when they asked for that step, the individuals don't pay for it, but HRA pays for it, and that was the challenge, is that increasing the commercial rates per however we did it was the challenge for HRA because that changed their budget significantly. And I would think that's the same thing with adjusting the county rate, that we would maybe, as we did then, figure out how to increase the larger, because I think if I remember right, any of those larger companies that did that came to us, we made individual accommodations for those folks to get them incrementally up to where they needed to be so they could work it in their budgets.
That is correct. We did any that had a certain amount of units and over, I believe it was 20 units or 30 units and over, we did a modified increase so that they had time to catch up.
And I think I'd be willing to suggest that for this increase too, because it can be, we're looking at
Right.
A significant increase percentage-wise, and
Right.
on a $100,000 budget, a 71% increase that's a lot of money for the dumpster. So,
Why don't we do this? Why don't Sherry and I come back with some more numbers and a plan for those larger units? And we'll hope to have in place by July 1 on the utility bills, so that we at least get a half a year.
I think that's, yep.
That's okay with
I like
everybody?
that idea. I think, and especially in this time, I would think one of the challenges is that, it's kind of a double-edged sword because all of the organizations, companies that would be filling up the dumpsters on, let's just say, Main Street are shuttered. So there aren't those tipping fees, but now all those folks are at home all the time. I've noticed that at my house, that all of a sudden we're going through a lot more groceries than we used to.
A lot more garbage.
And garbage is going out once a day instead of once every 3 days. So it's an interesting time. So I like the idea of you coming back with something and being ready to do it half a year in July.
Okay, Counselor Paulson, any other comments or questions?
No, I guess I just appreciate, sorry, there's a huge echo for me. I appreciate you guys both going back and kind of just taking a look and seeing what can be done for those folks. I do appreciate that. And I would also like to know the percentage of your guesstimate percentage regarding percentage of commercial and residential, and then maybe consider, I know maybe not during this time is a good time, but maybe consider going a little bit lighter residentially and a little bit heavier commercially. I guess I'd like to look at some of those numbers.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich, anything?
No, I think I'm, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I did quickly give Ed Alto a call. His understanding is that Washington Manor is a commercial account, as is Pine Mill Court. They don't pay individual residential garbage rates. They pay the commercial garbage rates based upon that. So that's his understanding. We could get a clarification just to make sure from Dana Halton and the HRA director, we could do that as well. So apparently we're looking for a motion. We're not.
Nope. Sherry and I will go back and run some more scenarios and come back with some more information.
Okay, thank you. It's directed to go back, to bring back for Sherry and Britt and staff to bring back some more information regarding this fee. I think we all agree that it has to go up, just that what method we're going to use in which to do that. And we want to make that decision. That'll be effective, what, July 1st?
July 1st.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the order to remove hazardous or blighted structures. We do have our city attorney in the audience today.
Welcome, Brian. Thank you for patiently hanging in the weed patch while we had this another long meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So what we have here is we have a series of 4 properties that have been identified as presenting particular problems or hazards within the community. And what we've included within the agenda packet is essentially some information about each property, inspection reports that Mr. Cole has conducted and relayed to the council, along with the official orders that I would be asking the council as the next step in abating these properties to issue. And so really what I'm looking for, what I would like the council to do is kind of a 2-step process with regard to each property. First, either collectively or individually, what I'd like the council to do is make a motion or take action. And what we could do is formalize it into a resolution for the upcoming city council meeting, declaring that each one of these properties, because of the conditions and based on the inspection reports and information that have been brought back by Mr. Cole, pose a hazard to the community. And once the properties are declared a hazard, we can take the second step, and I would ask the council to issue the orders that are contained within the packet here. That gives the city the ability to go to these property owners. It sets a specific amount of time for them to abate the hazardous condition that exists. If they fail to take that action, we can have the court essentially validate or put some force behind our orders and gives the city whatever power or authority we deem necessary to go take whatever action we need to abate the hazardous condition. And the additional step that's a little bit different from a straight condemnation on these is once we've taken those steps, we can actually take the next step of assessing the costs of remedying this situation back to the property owner or assess it against the property. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have relative to these 4 properties.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bearable?
Thank you. Brian, are these all condemned properties and they're not just the normal tear down type properties? I can't tell from the information. Are these ones that might be scheduled for court, all of these?
These ones should go to court, yes.
Okay, so we do need to take those steps then?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not going to go through with IRRB dollars on these, or are we still?
These are vacant owners or people that are not around or don't have the wherewithal to do an IRRB demolition.
So these are going to be, we can still get IRRB money?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Once we get the orders
From the
passed and
courts.
judgment that we can take them down, yes.
That's my question. Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Councilor Paulson, any questions regarding the recommendations by our city attorney to move forward with this 2-step process and try to get these properties mitigated?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Beyondich?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bearable?
I'm sorry, Brian, I had one other question. I believe to do this in a clean manner, we need a single resolution on each one of these properties, correct, if we end up going to court? Not a blanket one?
Yeah, the moving each of these individual properties separately and then actually having 2 motions or 2 actions with regard to each property is the cleanest, because that will create a record for me that will make it less cumbersome to bring to court to present to the judge if we get to that point.
Okay, can I make a motion then, Mayor?
You sure may.
Brian, basically, you and the staff will be doing this. I'll move that you and the staff put together the proper documentation on this with both scenarios for the council meeting on Tuesday. Can you get it done by then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. A motion by Counselor Baraboo to move forward with the two-step process recommended by our city attorney for the 4 properties that are listed under item 12. Is there support for that? Support by Counselor Freelieb. For the discussion, Counselor Johnson.
C and D are listed as 2nd and a half Avenue South and 2nd Avenue South. Don't we list all of our avenue addresses as west? I'm looking at them to see what these properties are, and 901 2nd Avenue South, do we have I want to make sure we're voting on the right properties.
We are.
Okay,
This is, yeah.
And 901.
This is how the county has them listed.
okay.
So,
I appreciate that clarification, thank you.
And just to give you 901 and a half, 2.5 Avenue South is directly behind the Freedom gas station, a little small alleyway area where there are like 3 or 4 houses on there only. And so, of course, 1006 Second there, we all know where that is. That needs to come down. So, thank you. Any further comments, Councilor Johnson? Did you get the clarification needed?
I did, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? As we move forward with the motion to move forward, we have to do individual resolutions for each property. So thank you. Before we move forward with the resolution, any other questions you might have, Councilor Paulson?
No, but I'll support the motion if it hasn't been supported already.
Okay, when we get to the making of the motion, we'll give you the support nod. Councilor Beyondich, anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so we'll start with a motion at this time for
Have one on the floor to move it with staff and Brian to do the proper paperwork for the council meeting.
perfect. Has it been moved and supported? Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Very good. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Any other items
I
that
do
you have?
have
You
one other item before we adjourn the meeting. On your desk, there is a proposal from IEA for the asbestos demolition inspection and project design. This is up for the hazardous conditions testing that is required for demolition of Owens Field.
Yes, I see that. I guess I'm not going to make any comments regarding the timelines here, and, we'd like to have a little bit of notice, but, I mean, these last-minute deals coming from, we should be more, our timeline should be a little bit more established here, so, but.
Would you like to defer this to the council meeting? We certainly can bring it to that meeting.
No, I think we should discuss it here, because it'll have to go to the council meeting anyway, right?
Correct.
So, will give us a little rehab on that?
We do have
Britt?
Carl on the phone, and I think Steve Trudeau might be on the phone still, too. Carl Sanderson? Not there.
So go ahead, Britt, give us a little
Yeah, so
lowdown.
this is the hazardous condition testing. I believe it's actually for the miners project itself, the building itself. We've never had it tested for all the asbestos and lead. So they're asking to move forward with the approval of this contract.
And the funds will be accessed from where?
The bond sale, I'm
From
assuming.
the bond sale. Very good. Okay, thank you.
Britt, I'm here and I can give further explanation.
Thank
if you
you.
can hear me.
Yep, we
Okay,
can hear you.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, yeah.
Or Carl.
This is Carl.
Carl.
I think Steve jumped off, but the further explanation on what that proposal is exactly what Britt was leading to. It's to inspect the building and give us a full detailed inventory of any hazardous material in the miners' existing building and in Ewens Field Stadium, if there's anything. So that's what we need that to happen prior to demolition as well. So that would be one of those other contingent items.
Carl, I know we had a cost in here, a cost discussion. I don't see it in the proposal. Can you let us know what the cost is for this? Thank you.
I think it was on the last page. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, no, I don't think we got all the packet. I don't think we got the whole proposal here.
No, it's not in here.
Was it
Okay.
It was $2,750.
$2,750. Okay,
I think you are correct. It was an email that we had
I think it was
received.
an email.
okay, very good. Do I have a motion on the floor?
Also move that we go forward with, we have to do it anyway, so.
Moved by Counselor Baraboo to approve. Is there support? Support by Counselor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion, Counselor Paulson?
Can I get a clarification on that amount? I was having a little trouble hearing.
$2,750.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Beyondich, any further discussion on this motion? Counselor Beyondich, any further discussion on this motion?
Nothing from,
Okay, thank you. Further discussion for Counselor Johnson.
Again, my question is to make sure that and I know you're on top of it, Britt, but I want reassurance that if we pay for something for the miners building, it's not going to affect the D3 and all that funding.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Any other items that you have to be brought before the council meeting
That
today?
is all I have.
So you have Counselor Baraboo. Apparently you have something?
I just have one thing, since we're going to have on the 16th, the equalization board with the email that we got of how it's going to be handled on there. Do we need to put together anything for the council meeting to let the public know? Because it's going to be the 16th, which I think is next week on Thursday. And how are we going to meet and where? Because we're going to have to be present. I already have 2 applications for abatement that people gave to me to be their, how do you want to call it, their whatever you want to call it, because one's an older person that can't get to, doesn't know how to do the other stuff, and so they've authorized me by letter to be their protege or whatever you want to call it, to appeal.
Pam, do you want to answer that one?
I could not hear a word that was said. Sorry.
That's okay. Charlie was wondering what we're going to do about the local board of appeals next week.
I saw the email.
All contact needs to go through Sarah Simic first. Once she has talked to the people, if they are not satisfied, they are to submit a letter to me postmarked by April 11th, or an email, or they could drop it off at City Hall to be sure it gets here. It needs to be in the system before we hold our meeting on the 16th. Once we have the letters, we will be calling people if there are questions on their concerns. If the council has a question on something, then we would call them.
And then this was publicized in the paper.
Correct, but what happens if somebody drops on last minute like they're allowed to do and can't meet that timeline? Or if you have somebody that wants to present for them, like I've been asked by 2 individuals to present for them, and I have the pictures, I have all the stuff that they want to appeal.
That needs to be submitted to me, Mr. Baraboo, so I can enter it in the county system.
That's not how it works, Pam. I don't care if you set up new rules or not. You still have the right to appeal at the last minute if an individual wants to. They want me to present. Okay, they don't want to do all this. One of them can't do it. The other one has the information to me already.
Prior, we can enter them.
All right, I'll get the stuff to you, but I'm going to hang on to I want the originals, so when it comes time we discuss this, I want the originals back. Because I've been by letter authorized to speak for them.
So the second question is that if you're speaking on behalf of these people, then maybe you can't sit on the Board of Equalization. It's a conflict, isn't it, if you're representing a party
Well,
privately?
I never thought about that, but that might be a conflict. You're correct.
I guess I would like to maybe
I
think
was
about that.
designated, and I was designated to be on that board, but
Right.
that is correct. Or can I just abstain from a vote? If I present.
Well, can he represent parties on appeal to the Board of Equalization and then abstain? I mean, how does that work when other people are not being represented by a member of the Board of Equalization?
Traditionally, Mayor, I think that would constitute a full conflict, but let me do a little bit of research and I'll get a memo to Ms. Sibenes so that she can distribute it to the council.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not advocating for it. I'm just going to give the information they've given me. That's what they want done.
Well, if you do that, did you give them to Pam and she can enter into the county
All right,
system?
all right, I'll do that.
Goes from there. That'd be
Right,
acceptable to
that's-
do?
That's acceptable.
And that'll meet the spirit and intent of the law with no conflict at that point?
I believe that's correct, Mayor, because then he would just be satisfying the new requirements of the process for the
Okay, that'll work.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. Anything else? Anybody like to bring up before we adjourn? Councilor Paulson, anything else you'd like to bring up under other items of concern before we adjourn?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other items to come before the committee of the whole meeting today, we officially stand adjourned for our next council meeting, which is Tuesday, April the 14th at 5:30 in the council chambers. And of course, for the public's edification, we'll be practicing our social distancing and meeting the requirements of the law and the recommendations based on the emergency declaration by the state, the county, and the city as well. So thank you for everybody. We stand adjourned.